Good morning. You're not late, Judy. You were early. You're always early. Yes, we need some more shocking and stunning testimony today. Absolutely. And YouTube once again notified me that I am live. Why'd they do that? And that intro had sounded like there were some audio issues. I hope that does not keep happening. Hillary was here for a few seconds. I guess maybe the baby needed her. So yesterday we had the ME and the DNA, which I gotta be honest, at one point I just stopped taking notes and started crocheting because I don't do well with the boring foundational type witnesses. I just don't. It's boring. It has to be done and it's boring. I did a little bit better with the medical examiner. We learned some pretty nasty things was done to her. There was not a lot of artery damage. It was mostly vein damage, which means she did not bleed out quickly. She bled out slowly because arteries are under pressure, so they spurt blood. Whereas veins are not under pressure, they bleed out more slowly. So she bled out over minutes. So, and I didn't mention this yesterday, but what I thought of, fear, trauma, anything like that makes time expand. And what I thought of the last time we went to Universal, remember I told you guys I lost weight because I wanted to fit in a roller coaster better? Well, we rode the Mummy roller coaster, and I've never had trouble getting in that one, but they redid it. It had been down for months because they were redoing everything. And they must have made the seats smaller because I had trouble fitting in that one. And they jammed me in that thing like super, super, super tight. And the ride attendant that put me in the seat, she goes, "Are you going to be okay like that for 2 minutes?" And I remember thinking, this ride's only 2 minutes long? Because I have been on that ride a bunch. That's like my favorite ride. And I remember thinking, this only lasts 2 minutes? Because it seems way longer. So when you're in fear or you're in trauma or anything like that, it seems so much longer. So if it took longer for her to bleed out because it was all veins, imagine her going through that, how much longer it must have seemed to her. This poor, poor girl. And her mom to have to sit in the courtroom and listen to all that. Oh my God. So her wounds, and there were 60 of them, were on her right side, and they were in a cluster in her upper torso, her head, her neck, her shoulder. So the medical examiner thinks she was already in the fetal position when she was stabbed. So she didn't have any brain injury. Her vocal cords, the horns of her vocal cords, one of them was completely severed. Her epiglottis, the flap that when you swallow food, there's a flap that closes that keeps it from going into your lungs. The epiglottis was severed. the knife blade broke off in her right lung. They didn't find any signs of alcohol or drugs. I'm trying to think what her eye. Where I just saw it. Where'd it go? There was a cut across her right eyebrow and eye and actually ruptured her right eyeball. So that was yesterday, and then we had the DNA examiner, and then Kristen Schubert came back. She was the person that did the photographs of the blue star that they sprayed in the apartment that showed the blood. And she was real quick. I didn't really understand why they called her back. So yesterday was mostly medical examiner. So that's the recap from yesterday in case you missed it. I don't think they have gotten started yet. No. I thought he said they were going to start at 9:30. But so I think he was the 14th. Dr. Stephen Cogswell. I love his name. This reminds me of Cogsworth from Beauty and the Beast. And the other witness's name was Brenda something. I missed the last name. And she just did the DNA analysis. And like I said, I didn't take notes or anything on that because DNA is boring. And I know that I should have, but I didn't. And the state is supposed to rest today. I guess I don't know if they're gonna like go all day and rest, and then defense will start their case tomorrow, or defense is starting today. I don't know which. It wasn't clear. Day 5. So this will be witness 16 today. So I hope you guys had a good evening. I did. I just got up from here and went to bed. I watched Biggin, and then I just read a book. But my Amazon delivery came, And because I got an iPad, my very first iPad. I got an iPad for Christmas. So I got this case, and it came in yesterday. And I'm not too crazy about the case itself, but it comes with a keyboard. And it's magnet. It's magnetic. So it magnets in, and you can move it down there, and then it sits like that. You got like a little, it's almost like a laptop now. And I got like a screen protector on it that cuts out the glare. You can see my ring light reflection in it, and I can't get all those air bubbles out of there. It's driving me nuts. I have taken it off and re-squeegeed it I don't know how many times, and I can't get them out. It's driving me crazy. But I did that because I got those because I took it with us when we went to Gainesville the other day, and I was reading my book, and Travis is like, oh, the sun's hitting and I can't see, because it was like the sun hit it and it was like reflecting it right into his eyes. So I saw the non-reflective screen protection. Like, oh, I gotta get those. But now I have bubbles. It is going to drive me crazy. But it is what it is. Whatever. I follow the directions. Come on, people. I'm wanting to sell stuff at a craft fair. We have all kinds of festivals: spring, summer, fall, Christmas. Don't think we have a New Year's one. Watermelon season, strawberry season. We just have festivals. They're not that great, but we have them. So there's usually some craft booths, some food booths, some food trucks. So I'm making some things to sell. I've been making things to sell. I have a bag of things in the corner of my room that I have finished in order to sell at a craft show, and I've never gotten enough stuff. Because I keep making stuff for friends. So, like, I make stuff to sell and I throw them in that bag, and then something happens and I meet somebody that likes something, or someone's having a baby, or I'm not complaining. I like making stuff for my friends, but I always get interrupted, and so I don't get finished making the stuff I'm going to make the sale. So that's one problem. And the other problem is I get bored making the same thing over and over and over and over again. So I don't ever have enough of one thing. I like, my limit, I think, has been 5. I make 3 to 5 of one thing, and then I got to move on to something else because I get too bored making the same thing over and over again. But this is what I'm making right now. It's a gnome. Like, people like gnomes now. I've never understood the appeal, but my best friend got me started making the crochet gnomes. She sent me a pattern for a Christmas tree gnome and said, will you please make this for me? And it was so much fun. She got me started on doing gnomes. And she was like, I converted you to gnomes. Yeah, I can rotate back to an old thing because it's been a while. So it's like it's brand new again when I go back to an old thing. So, like, I'm when back when I was sick and one of my infections caused a huge wound, I went to the wound care center, and my infectious disease doctor was a huge Star Wars fan, and we were talking about the Mandalorian series, and I made him a baby Yoda. And then when I saw him in the hospital, and then when they discharged me and I went to the wound care center as an outpatient, I took him the baby Yoda that I made. So everybody in the wound care center office saw it, and everybody wanted one. So I made 2 or 3 more for them. And I haven't made one since because it was just, I got sick of making them. But now I just ordered the yarn for it because I thought, well, I can start making those again now. Those will sell good because I haven't made them in a while. That was a couple of years ago. So oh, I figured out what that noise was yesterday. Remember I told you I kept hearing a noise? They are filling in a sinkhole at the house next door, the trailer next door where I used to live. There's a huge sinkhole behind it. And I had called when we lived there, I had called about getting it filled. And just to come out to look at it was thousands of dollars. Just to look, just to assess it, to see what needed to be done to fill it in. And I was like, well, we can't pay that. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see where it goes. And if the house falls in it, then we're just going to have to get the insurance to reimburse us. Because, and I actually called the insurance company, and they said that the only way we would get paid for that would be if the house became unlivable because it was in a sinkhole. What happened to prevention? I mean, seriously. If you fill in the sinkhole, if you pay for filling in the sinkhole, then you won't have to pay for a whole new house. I mean, come on. So anyway, now the dairy owns all of that because Wells Fargo tricked me and I lost my house. So the dairy owns it, and they're just throwing dirt in the sinkhole with a front loader. Like they've got a dump truck that's dumping dirt, and then they're just like taking a front loader and just loading the holes with it. And that's the noise that I heard. And it's louder today. I think they stopped though, because I don't hear it anymore. I hope their truck doesn't fall in the sinkhole while they're working on it. But that was scary though when we lived over there, because it was in the field that we didn't do anything with, but it came up right to the fence that we had there for our backyard. And we were like, what happens when it starts becoming part of our backyard? What are we going to do? And it never, ever came into the actual yard. It stopped right there at the fence, like it knew to stop there. And then when the dairy got that, well, it's a dairy's problem now. We don't have to worry about it. Except we think there might be one because we're right now, our property is right. This used to be all of ours. So our property is right next to that. So we also have, our property goes back equally as far as that property does. And we also have a spot in the back that may also be a sinkhole. But we don't even go back there. We don't mow back there. We don't do anything back there. It's all just high grass. So we don't even know if there's a sinkhole back there. And we're not anxious to try to find out. I think when my dad was alive, they were mowing that with the tractor, and the tractor fell into a depression. I don't think it was a complete sinkhole, but like maybe the start of one. And then they quit mowing that part. David, where have you been? I've been worried sick about you. I'm so glad you're here. I was just telling Travis the other night, I have not seen David in forever, and I'm worried. I don't know where Nancy's been. Nancy was in big in chat last night. Was it last night or night before? But I know Bill is now streaming during the day at the same time that I am. So that's probably where Nancy. I've probably lost Nancy to Bill. But that's all right. Because he has the Zoom link for Fleischer now. Because he's not on YouTube anymore. So he can stream Fleischer, and I think he's the only person that can. I don't blame him. I would take advantage of that as well. Oh no. That is absolutely ridiculous. And now StreamYard's going to start misbehaving. It's like you're getting penalized for being homeless. Come on, StreamYard. I am paranoid about my electronics when I'm out in public. I watch it like one time when I had a Kindle tablet, I was at a doctor's appointment and I put it down somewhere and left it. And then I remembered where I last was with it. And we went back and it was gone. And I was like, oh man, I just lost my tablet. And I was so upset. And then I can't remember if the person that had it contacted me or if Casey told me, but somebody that knew my stepdaughter, Casey, had found it. And because of, I guess, seeing Casey's pictures and stuff in it, figured out that they knew it was mine, that, they knew Casey, and through Casey knew how to get it back to me, I guess. So I got it back. If they just left it there, I would have been able to go back and get it. But I mean, they were doing the right thing because they realized they knew a person related to me, but so I guess they did the right thing. I got it back. That's all that matters. That is horrible. Don't they have shelters and stuff you guys can go to? I can't imagine. I'm so sorry, David. I wish there was some way I could help you, but we're barely keeping our heads above water. I'd be homeless if I had to pay rent or a mortgage. Thank God my dad left me at the house. And if it wasn't for Travis having a job, I don't know how I'd pay my property taxes because on disability, I don't make enough to pay my bills and eat and pay property taxes. He pays the majority. I give him a little bit money to chip in, and then he pays the rest. I don't know what I would do. Honestly, I have no idea. I don't know what's wrong with Social Security because they do not give you enough money to live on. They just don't. And there's so many people that are on Social Security but are working because they just can't afford it. I had a pair of scissors in here. Oh, they're there. Yesterday, I dropped a pair of scissors and they disappeared. I don't know if there's a portal to another dimension under this desk or what. I swear they disappeared. They are gone. I have looked everywhere. They're just gone. Oh my God. There's an episode of Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, where some accident, I can't remember if it's a transporter accident or a shuttle accident or what, but they end up going back to the 90s. And it's about how to help homeless people, they make these areas in the city like homeless zones where everybody checks in and they get like food vouchers and they're not allowed to leave. They have to stay in that area. But it like there were some people that were good, decent people, but then there were some people that weren't. And the bad people preyed on the good people. And it actually made everything worse instead of better. And it was just horrific. And supposedly there were riots that ended up reforming the way they did things, that ended up opening up the way to the better future that we had. It was one of those episodes. It's like a commentary on social justice and that kind of a thing. Darn it. I know he said he had other things on his docket this morning, but I wonder if he's delayed because of something. Oh, I thought they were done. I just heard the truck again. Oh, they started back up. I tucked Spike in and I stayed in bed with him and I played with him and I baby talked him and I loved on him. So hopefully. And then he got under the covers and I tucked him in good under the covers. And Belle got in there. I tucked her good under the covers. So hopefully they'll be settled for a while. That little booger drives me crazy. I even brought the dog bed, even though they don't really sleep in the dog bed. Belle uses it more than Spike does. But I even brought his bed out here and said, "Here, sleep in your bed right here." And he won't even do that. Yep, good old science fiction. Yeah, I can see that. Gainesville passed, I guess, a city ordinance or whatever about people like standing in the median or the side of the road asking for money and, holding up the signs that like, you like hearing Spike squeaks? They drive me crazy. And he knows it. That's why he does it. But they were, a while back, they had like made it illegal, but now people are doing it again. So I don't know if it's not illegal anymore or if it's still illegal, but it's just been so long that people are now chancing it again. But my problem is that you don't know who is genuine and who isn't. When I see somebody like that, I I tend to say a little prayer, because I don't want to give money to people that are faking. I actually saw a guy one time, or please get some one of those, I don't know. And he was limping, and um he was limping. There was a long line of cars stopped. It was like the off ramp off of the interstate. And he had this sign and he's limping along, trying to get this long line of cars to give him something. And when nobody gave him anything, he threw his sign down and walked normal. And I was like, no way. I could not believe that. And after that, now I'm like, how do I know you're not faking? Like, how do I know that you really need this money? So I always say a little prayer, like, Lord, please give me some kind of feeling. Let me know somehow. My mom always said, well, if you're giving it out of the goodness of your heart, it doesn't matter if the person you're giving it to is legit or not. And I guess that's true. But still, I don't want to give somebody my hard-earned money and then them go buy drugs or booze or something with it. And then there's a Stephen King. Faked being blind? See, and that is bad for people that really are needy. Because, people see the fake ones like that and then they don't give to the people that do need it because they're saying, "Oh, people are fake." Every once in a while though, I'll just get a feeling like those people are real, and I might get some change. If I have some change or a dollar or two, I might give it to them. Sometimes I'll just get a feeling like that's the real deal. There's a Stephen King story where this guy, he was a Vietnam veteran, and every morning he would wake up, put on a suit, kiss his wife and kids goodbye, go to this fancy office. I forgot what he claimed to be, like a lawyer or something, some kind of like high dollar job. And then every day he would go to his office, tell his secretary hello, go to his personal office, shut and lock the door, take his suit off, put on raggedy clothes, climb up through the ceiling to the abandoned office next door that he actually owned himself, but it looked abandoned. And so he'd have on ratty clothes and then go out that office door and then panhandle all day. And then at the end of the day, he would come back in the abandoned looking office, go back in, crawl back through the ceiling, go in put his suit back on, and then leave. And that was how he made his money. Of course, it was a fiction story, but still. Yeah. And people pretending to have Tourette's. My husband has Tourette's. Those fake videos of people with Tourette's, those make me mad. Because people don't know what Tourette's really is. It's not like when you see people faking Tourette's, they're like, well, I don't have my camera on. You can't see what I'm doing. Come on, camera. They're like, come on, big screen. They're like, that's not Tourette's. Like, just, um, my husband, like, he'll do this. And it's not a lot in a row. It's just, and then when he's playing a video game, he goes, he like works his jaw. I guess because he's concentrating or stressed from the video game. And one day, my stepdaughter said, "What's he chewing?" He's not chewing. He's just doing that. Um, he does something like when he's walking, he'll like flip his arm. But and like the yelling out cuss words thing, he doesn't do that. He does kind of little grunting noise thing. That's his vocal tick. You have to have a physical tick and a vocal tick for it to be true Tourette's. Yeah, see, people that truly need money, they're going to be grateful for whatever you give them. They're not going to be like, well, you gave that guy more than you gave me. Yeah, there's YouTubers that are faking schizophrenia, multiple personality disorder, and Tourette's all the time. Oh, you know what I think is really funny right now is all the TikTokers that are going crazy because TikTok is banned now. I never did get into TikTok, so I'm good. But they banned it like months ago, and it was still going. But now I keep seeing all these YouTube videos that say TikTokers are having a fit because they can't get on TikTok anymore. I don't know. I just when I first started dating Travis, his mom goes, he was diagnosed with Tourette's, but he never had it. And I was like, really? So, once again, one of those areas of nursing that I was never specialized in. So, I came home and I looked up Tourette's syndrome and I was like, he does that, he does that, he does that, he does that. And I was like, oh, yeah, he has it. But it's not, I mean, I'm sure there are probably people that have it a lot worse and do the more severe ticks and stuff, but and he's never been on medicine or anything. Oh, doesn't take effect until Sunday, and people are already melting down according to YouTube. So, I never got into TikTok, and I don't know why, because I love to dance. And like, I watch the, the ones that get posted on YouTube. I watch like the dance, what are they called? Stitches, where there's like a thing, a trend you have to copy or whatever. I watch those when they get posted to YouTube. But I never have done the TikTok because back around the Johnny Depp Amber Heard um that era, it might have been right after the trial. I watched Megan Fox for a little bit, and she was saying, "Don't watch TikTok because it's owned by China and they're spying on us." So I was like, "Okay, I won't use TikTok." And she goes, "But watch it on here." I guess she was doing the same thing, getting it off of YouTube and then reacting to them. So I usually watch Charlotte Dobre reacts to TikTok videos, and my mind just went blank. Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles, they usually react to TikTok videos on YouTube. So good. Anybody that's faking a mental illness should. Mental illnesses are just as real and just as valid as physical illnesses, but they still have got all this stigma attached to them. So, professional TikTokers have a designated phone for their TikTok stuff? Hmm. See, I don't know. That's like, I don't want to have to be that cautious about anything. I get it though. Oh, oh my God. Wow. Dang, she got some pull. Oh man, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't need my apps to get into my business. It's bad enough that AI knows my preferences. I downloaded TikTok and never used it and then deleted it. I do that with a lot of apps. I'm like, oh, this app looks cool. 2 weeks later, I've not touched it. So I just go, okay, I'm not going to use that one and I'll delete it. I don't know why the side of my nose keeps itching today. I think that CPAP is ruining my nose. Because it itches all the time. My nose itches constantly. I don't know if it's drying out the skin on my nose and it's making my nose itch all the time or what, but my nose itches all the time. Oh my god. I have never watched any of Mr. Beast's videos. But the behavior panel did a video on him and said, is Mr. Beast lying? And I didn't watch it because I never watched any of Mr. Beast's video and I don't really care about him one way or the other, but I might watch it now. I don't even know who Rosanna Pacino is. Wow, 14.6 million subscribers. I'll have to check her out. I thought they were ready to go. What happened? I hate to bake. I hate to cook, but I hate to bake more. Because you have to measure precisely to bake. With cooking, you just, for the most part, you can just throw stuff together. You can go by taste, by how much you like. Escape the Night. I haven't heard of that either. I like reality competition shows. I don't particularly care for reality shows, but I like reality competition shows. I liked Survivor the first two seasons. After that, I was done. I can't believe that show is still on the air. It started getting vicious. I was like, nope, this is like the Lost, not the Lost Boys. It's not the Lost Boys. What is it? That book with the Lord of the Flies. That's it. Oh, that's cool, David. I mean, no offense. I just don't like to do all that measuring. I'm lazy. A good There was um a good reality competition show, and they only did one season of it, and I don't know why it stopped. Dwayne Johnson was the host. It was what was the name of it? Dang it! They did it in Panama. It was something about a hero. hero was at the very end, like at the show at the very end when they brought them all together in the TV studio at the very end. Like it didn't get picked when they were there in Panama. Brought them all back, and then they said who won the show. I've never watched a whole episode of Masked Singer. Um I've watched stuff on YouTube, like compilations. I've watched the compilation of Pentatonics. The Hero. Yes, that's it. That, that was a good show. And they only did one season. I don't know why they didn't do it. Keep doing it because that was good. Um, so I've seen when Pentatonics performances, and I have seen when Donnie Wahlberg went on there as I've not seen the cock doodle do whatever his name was, like every episode he was in, but I saw his reveal when Jenny McCarthy about passed out because she didn't realize that was her husband. I like stuff like The Amazing Race and those type of reality shows. American Ninja Warrior I like too. Cloodle do. Okay. I forgot what his character's name was called. Wow. See, I thought it was good. I don't know. Maybe I'm easy to please. There was another one. It's really, really old. It was Murder in a Small Town where I don't know if it was an abandoned small town or what. It was a fishing town up north somewhere on the East Coast, and they redid the whole entire town to make it a place for this um, reality show. And they put clues everywhere, and it was kind of like Survivor in a way, um, because they could vote who got to go investigate the place. And so if the killer was at the place, they would be killed. And they had one of those cameras that attach, but they have the rig that looks back at your face. So nobody was with them. There was no cameraman or anything. And so they went to this place and they either found a clue or got killed. Um, so if the person that they voted to go didn't get killed and came back with a clue, and so then they would know who voted for them to go. So it caused tension in the house. It was a really good show. So it was kind of like a real life game of Clue, only with like consequences. And there was only one season of that one too. Oh no. I didn't even hear about that one. Oh, that's sad. I thought they screened people for those kind of shows so stuff like that didn't happen. It's almost 11, so I want to go to 9 tonight. Dang it. Deleting yourself over $20,000 is stupid. Okay, hang on. I'm going to reload everything.
Can you say your full name for the record?
Jennifer Moody,
And Ms. Moody, where are you employed?
the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office.
What do you do at the Hamilton?
The capacity of my current assignment is a fingerprint technician, according to the policy and procedure. It's considered.
County Sheriff's Office?
The capacity of my current.
Yes, my webcam is off because sometimes StreamYard works better when my webcam is off.
Yes,
Can you say your full name for the record?
Jennifer Moody,
And Ms. Moody, where are you employed?
the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office.
What do you do at Hamilton County Sheriff's Office?
The capacity of my current assignment is a fingerprint technician, according to the policy and procedure. It's considered a fingerprint technician.
Okay, and in your role as a fingerprint technician, what do you
Having the forms and the fingerprint cards from all the agencies. First, they're sorted by date, and then they're sorted by agency after having checked to make sure the names match, the names on the fingerprint cards match the name on the reports. The charges are according to what the report says, and the ORI, that's original reporting incident, or the origin reporting incident, matches the agency for which the paperwork is going to go to.
Okay, and for what purposes do you have to go through all of those steps?
It's basically a quality assurance to make sure that all of the charges that we submit on behalf of other agencies are correct and accurate.
Okay, thank you. And who operates the Hamilton County Jail? What entity?
Oh, the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, and when a person is charged with a crime, are they required to be fingerprinted?
That's correct.
Does that occur at the jail?
It does.
Can you describe that process to the jury?
That's correct. We use what's called a TENS machine. It's a digital machine provided by DataWorks, and they are an integrated software provider for criminal justice agencies. And so each fingerprint, if each finger is scanned digitally, with the print of the, what they call a slap, that's the hand being placed flat, the full hand being placed flat, accompanied by a palm, just the lower palm, and then the upper palm.
And how are those records kept at the sheriff's office?
They're kept digitally.
Okay.
They're
And
collected digitally and stay collected digitally.
okay, and do you have any other job responsibilities when it comes to the fingerprints that are collected from individuals being booked at the jail?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna approach with document. Do you recognize those two pieces of paper?
These appear to be a front and back copy of a fingerprint card.
Finger card from the Hamilton County
That's-
Jail. And I'm gonna, is this a record that is kept in the normal course of the sheriff's office business when it
That's
comes to operating the jail?
Yes,
And do you have access to these records?
I do.
Okay, Your Honor, I'd ask that this be State's Exhibit 212. All right, I'm gonna show, these records to the jury behind you. If you could, you can use either, but I'm gonna be pointing to the screen behind you. Is this first page, the page that you're looking at, which was that first, sample that you described?
That's correct. The bottom right and left-hand corners are what I described as the slap that is taken, and then the top ones are each individual finger.
Okay, and who are the prints taken by?
The booking officer.
Okay, are the booking officers required to insert the inmate's information into these print cards?
That's correct. Initially, they're entered into what's called CJIS. That's a criminal justice information system, so that they're on file for our records. And then those records are then imported into the machine prior to the prints being taken.
And who inputs the information about the inmate?
The booking officer.
All of it?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and you can see on this print card, there's a name, on Jason.
That's correct.
And then you see a social security number.
Just like the name, that's
Would
correct.
that be the social security number attached to Mr. Chen?
That's correct.
And then you look down, you see his date of birth, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then can you describe for the jury what's over to the right of that, the M, the A, the numbers?
That is what's called an FBI number.
No, I'm sorry, if you'll look up to the screen, this part.
Oh, the M is the sex, the A is the race, and then the 601 is going to be the subject's height, the 170 is going to be the subject, and then the BRO is the eye color, and then the BLK is the hair color.
Okay, and you were about to describe the FBI number, what's that?
Oh, the FBI number appears in that, well, it's not on that card yet. That would be, the FBI number would be in this box right here. It had not yet been assigned because prints had just been submitted. But the state control number is what's next to the left of the date of birth.
And does the state control number correlate with the defendant listed?
It's an identifying number assigned by the TBI, and then the number that's not yet been generated is the FBI. Each agency gives an identifying number to each record.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. And then, the second page of
That exhibit 212. What do we see here?
The top two dates, the block below it is the date the date the offense occurred. Sometimes those dates will be different depending on the circumstance.
And could it be different than a date of an offense of a crime if they are at some point charged with another crime and have to be fingerprinted?
That could be serious felony charges that were extremely combative to the point that we had to allow a cooling down period of maybe a day before the subject could actually be printed.
Okay,
That's what would cause the discrepancy.
okay. Are you aware in this case, and you may not be, are you aware in this case that Mr. Chen had been charged with two?
I am no, I was not aware.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then let's go down on this sheet of paper.
What does this represent? 2756HS.
That is the badge number following by HS for Hamilton Sheriff. The 4 digits are the identifying badge number for the officer that it printed, obtained the prints.
Okay, and then underneath that is what?
The charge for which the prints were taken.
Okay. And then location of
That's
residence,
correct.
is that right? For these prints that were taken by 2756HS badge number, did you go through the quality assurance process
That's correct.
and use that for every set of prints?
Every set of prints.
In fact, that's your primary job, is that
That
correct?
is correct.
Okay, nothing further, Judge.
Hey, Toxic.
Is that Officer Moody or Miss Moody?
I'm a deputy. I'm in a sworn capacity, so it's deputy officer, whichever.
Awesome. This.
I wasn't sure if I missed it.
How long have you been with the sheriff's office?
5 years.
Okay. And how long have you worked in the fingerprint? And okay, when did you actually start in the fingerprint division?
February of 22.
And very, very limited questions for you here.
Sure.
Were there any cards that you were able to access for Mr. Chen prior to November of 2022?
Not to my knowledge.
And are you aware if he's been fingerprinted through the sheriff's office any more since November of 2022?
Not that I've noticed.
Is that the only record that you had for the purposes of your testimony here today?
That's correct.
Thank you.
No, you're on.
Jury, have any questions for Ms. Moody? All right, thank you, Ms. Moody. Step down.
Toxic. I made you a moderator. Oh, now you're blue. It's like, but you're not turning blue. Put the Discord link in the chat, honey.
Lieutenant Franklin.
solemnly swear affirm the testimony that you give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Lieutenant.
Good morning, ma'am.
Will you state your full name just for the court's record?
That's correct. David Franklin, Franklin.
And Lieutenant Franklin, where are you currently employed?
The Chattanooga Police Department.
What's your current role at the Chattanooga Police Department?
I'm the lieutenant of the Family Justice Center.
I just
What is that?
got his name.
Family Justice Center houses our Special Victims Unit and our Juvenile Missing Persons Team, along with other roles in the city of Chattanooga. They have stuff for domestic violence and for abused children, and has our child advocacy.
What position were you in at the Chattanooga Police Department before you became a lieutenant at the Family Justice Center?
The previous 13 years, 3 years I was in the late print unit, and the last 10 years I was a supervisor of the unit.
Okay, let's go back through your employment history with the Chattanooga Police Department. When did you join the police department?
2005,
And in what capacity were you at that time?
a patrol officer,
How long were you a patrol officer at the police department?
approximately 4 years.
And then what was the next division at the police department that you moved into?
The latent fingerprint unit,
Does that go by any other names?
APHIS unit,
What does APHIS stand for?
automated fingerprint identification system.
What are the job responsibilities of a, would your title have been investigator in the APHIS division or?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, what are the job responsibilities of an investigator in the APHIS unit?
We receive friction-rich skin evidence from crime scenes. We manually compare that evidence to known individuals. We notify the investigator of our findings. We write reports. At times we do process items of evidence from crime scenes, and then when necessary, we testify in court.
Okay, and at some point, did you move up into a supervisory role in the APHIS unit?
Yes, ma'am, 2012.
And what position did you move into?
The sergeant of the unit.
What makes the difference between an investigator that you would have become in 2009 versus moving up a couple years later into the sergeant position?
I oversee all the operations of the APHIS unit.
How many individuals are employed in the APHIS unit?
Currently, there is 3.
And are all of those sworn law enforcement officers?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so in 2022, what position were you in?
2002.
2022.
22, the sergeant of the unit.
Okay. How many people were underneath you at that time?
There were 2.
Okay. Let's let's go through your educational history and your training history. Do you have to be specially trained?
I know, me either. And do you remember yesterday they had that fingerprint person explain fingerprinting? Like, we put it on a card, we put the finger on the ink pad and put the finger on the card. I've never seen them do that on a trial before.
To be a latent print examiner at the Chattanooga Police Department.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you describe, first of all, do you have a bachelor's degree, sir?
Yes, ma'am, criminal justice.
Okay, thank you. And can you describe going back in time to when you first were in the APHIS unit, what training was required to be in the APHIS unit and be a latent print examiner?
Okay. For 2 years, the latent fingerprint unit, you're basically in training, you're learning. So I trained another certified latent print examiner. That examiner was certified by the International Association for Identification. I trained under him. During that time, I attended a school put on by the National Institute of Justice, the National Forensic Science and Technology Center. It was in Largo, Florida. It consisted of 12 different modules, 11 different modules of instruction. And in between that coursework, you'll do additional coursework and assignments and pass tests, of course. I completed that school, and during my time as latent print examiner, I completed over 300 hours in continuing education and latent print examination.
That first training program in latent print examiner training program is how it's described on your resume. That was a long training, was it not?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you recall? What months?
It was a total of 10 weeks, but it was spread out over several months.
Okay. And in those 10 weeks, did you have to have training, a certain amount of hours of training in different types of subjects that deal with fingerprint examination?
Yes, ma'am. Each week was 40 hours.
Okay. And you testified that since then there's been over 300 hours of training. Does some of that training include IAI conferences?
Yes, ma'am.
You just mentioned it for the jury. What is IAI?
It's the largest professional organization in the world. It houses latent fingerprints, DNA, serology.
Do you recall how many times you've attended IAA training since 2010?
I would say pretty much since 2012, every year except the last 2 years, I've attended that conference.
Okay. Has your training been ongoing from 2010 when you went to the original latent print examiner training program? Was your training ongoing through your time in the APHIS unit?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that required by the Chattanooga Police Department?
No, but it is required by the IAI. You have to have continued training hours to keep your certification. You have to recertify over 5 years.
Okay, so you can't just be certified and not worry about your training for 10, 15 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you just testified about certification. Who certifies you as a latent print examiner?
The IAI, International Association for Identification.
Do you have to be certified to work in this capacity at the Chattanooga Police Department?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Are the other 2 individuals that work in the APHIS unit also certified?
Currently, one other person is.
And who is that?
Sergeant Siders.
Salyers?
Yes, ma'am.
What are some things, what are some subject areas that your training has focused on over the years when it comes to fingerprint examination?
Processing items of evidence, determining sufficiency of latent impressions, deliberate distortion.
You know, I don't remember them talking a lot about his DNA. They did talk about hers. They got her DNA from her toothbrush to match, of course, to identify to make sure that it was her. But yeah, this is not a did he do it? This is a he did it, but is it murder 1 or is it voluntary manslaughter? So I feel like this is a waste of taxpayers' money. Why didn't they offer him a plea deal? I don't think you can black out and stab somebody 60 times. I think at some point you're going to come to if you're doing that much activity. But what do I know?
Pressures of blood, biology of the skin, the history of latent fingerprint examination, the list goes on.
And after you were certified as a latent print examiner, were you recertified for after those 5-year periods?
Yes, ma'am, I've recertified twice.
2016 and 2021.
I believe it was 2017 and 22, I believe that's the dates.
What types of cases at the Chattanooga Police Department does the APHIS unit work?
All crimes.
From burglary to a homicide?
Yes, ma'am.
And at whose request do you examine fingerprints?
It's when the officers or investigative units submits cases to our office.
In your years in the APHIS unit, both as an investigator and a sergeant, how many fingerprints would you say that you reviewed?
Items of evidence I've looked at for impressions, probably over 10,000 comparisons. Actually comparing a latent print and a known print, well over 300,000.
300,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is there any type of peer review process at the Chattanooga Police Department?
Yes, we follow a scientific process known as ACE-B, which requires verification.
So would that mean that after you examine prints, if you're able to make an identification, somebody else would have to verify that identification?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Is that a nationally known procedure?
It's a standard that we follow.
Does IAA require it?
No, SWIGFAST, which is Scientific Working Group for Friction Ridge Analysis Study of Technology and Find Standards, and that's one of their standards.
Okay, so the IAI doesn't even require it, but the Chattanooga Police Department still does that.
That's right.
Okay. And is the methodology that you use in fingerprint examination, is that accepted nationwide?
That's correct.
Your Honor, at this point, I would tender this expert as an expert in APHIS and fingerprint examination.
You objection.
No objection.
Let the witness be recognized as expert in APHIS and latent print analysis and examination.
Okay. So let's talk to the jury about fingerprints. Lieutenant, just in general, before we get to the case at hand, okay? Are fingerprints similarly to DNA unique to each person?
Yes, we have an additional thing where DNA, if you have identical twins, you can't tell the difference. Even identical twins have specific fingerprints just for that person.
Nobody in the world has the same fingerprints as another person.
No, ma'am. Your fingerprints are above the womb, about 12 weeks in utero. There's numerous stresses and strain, the rise and lowering of your molar pads in your fingers, biological history. They can never be a duplicate. That's why no one will ever have the same exact fingerprint.
Okay, and what about the different prints on each of our fingers? Are any of our fingers contain the same prints?
The basic, so the basic 3 types, you have arches that come in one side and arching on the other side. You have whorl patterns that are whorls, and you have what's called loops, which flow in one side and not the other. So we all have those 3, but your individual characteristics, what we call level 2, minutia, regiments, those are particularly common to you.
Okay, let's talk in more detail about some of those words you just used. Minutia, what is that?
Minutia is ridge events. So like I said, those characteristics, we look at fingerprints. So your ridges aren't just smooth, straight lines. They bifurcate, which means your ridge will go along and bifurcate into 2 separate ridges. You have a ridge that comes to like a ridge ending, and then it simply is a dot. This which a ridge is basically a ridge event that's as wide as it is long, or a combination of those 3.
Okay, and you just mentioned ridge ends and bifurcations. Are those well-known terms in the fingerprint examination field?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are there, you mentioned loops, arches, and whorls. Are those the 3 most common identifying factors in fingerprint examination?
Yes, ma'am. Loops are predominantly the majority of your fingerprints. Whorls is the second, and then the last about 5% are arches.
And you sort of already answered this, but can our fingerprints change over time in terms of age or if your body changes?
No, back to when you're in the utero, the molar pads recess, your fingerprints are set, they don't change throughout your entire life unless they're altered by like disease or scarring. But once you scar the basal layer, which is the basic template of your skin, that scar will replicate the rest of your life, so it's even more unique.
Okay, thank you. And did you prepare some demonstrative PowerPoint slides for the jury to help us understand this complicated field?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Okay. Behind you, I'm going to show the jury this slide, and I'm going to ask you, are there two separate types of methods to process fingerprint evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
Using this slide, can you talk to the jury about the two separate methods that are used nationwide?
Y'all right, sit down, so I know sir.
Felix, if you could turn to my phone.
Yeah.
And Lieutenant, if you would like to use this one.
So what you see on the screen here is processing techniques, items for evidence. So depending on what kind of surface you have and what is secreted from the skin, determines what kind of process you use. Predominantly what we use is basic fingerprint powder. So you'll see this here on the left. I'm sure you've seen on TV shows, CSI, and all the cool shows, this basic fingerprint powder. And all that do is adhering to the sweat and the eccrine stuff that's on your skin on that surface. However, we also could do a super glue fuming, which really on plastic surfaces and stuff is more suitable for this because it really fixates the print in, so you can use that. However, there's another process on there I forgot to put up here is if it's so these are all for non-porous surfaces. If you pour water on this table here,
Super
your
glue.
fingerprint residue or the water on the surface would stay on top of that surface. Same thing with your fingerprint residue. If I touch this, the residue from my skin will stay on that surface. So we use these basic to process. However, I touch my file folder here. That's a non-porous surface, right? If I pour water on this paper, it's going to be absorbed in, so we use a chemical process to process that.
Okay, and is one of these techniques considered more reliable than the other?
Not necessarily. They're both. It depends on the case and what they examine, what kind of surface and what is secreted from the skin. But predominantly, your cyanoacrylate or super glue fuming is more stable.
And what was being used in 2022 at the Chattanooga Police Department?
Both of these processes.
Okay, and in the case of State of Tennessee versus Jason Chen, was one of these utilized?
Yes, we use the cyanoacrylate.
Okay, so that photo on the left of that machine that none of us have ever seen before, except for you most likely, do you have one of those in Chattanooga?
Yeah, we actually, this exact model.
Okay, perfect. I think you can sit back down for another second, and then you might want to get up again. I want to move into defining some important fingerprint terms for the jury before we get in to the evidence. You mentioned ACE-V. What is ACE-V?
ACE-V is an acronym for analysis, comparison, evaluation, and verification. It's the process we use to compare a known print to a late print.
Okay, and does the A, C, E, and V stand for anything?
Yes, it stands for analysis, comparison, evaluation, and verification.
Okay, and is that a term that's used nationwide by examiners?
That's correct.
Is that the official process for examining with validity fingerprint?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And let's go to known impressions or 10-point cards. Your PowerPoint's on the screen behind you. What are known impressions or 10-print cards as they could be called?
Known impressions are the intentional reporting of the friction-rich skin, and this can be done a couple of ways. The dominant way we do that is black printer's ink. You just roll on the finger, and you'd roll that nail to nail on a contrasting surface such as a 10-print card to report that friction-rich skin. Your top 10 boxes are your rolled, and the bottom box is where we call the fine impression for the printout simultaneously. Or you could use basically what we call a live scan device. The live scan device is basically a flat band scanner that does the same thing. It just takes images instead of.
Do you know which one the jail uses?
Why do
Jail
you
uses
have
the
to turn back?
jail uses a live scan device.
Okay. And this basically is when fingerprints are purposefully taken
Correct.
from a subject.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, the next slide, latent prints. So this is the other kind of fingerprints, correct?
Correct.
And can you describe these for the jury?
So latent prints are accidental or unintentional reproduction of that same friction rid skin from secretions in your skin or a contaminant. Your body secretes mostly sweat.
I
It also has
swear.
amino acids, other.
I'm not doing
Or
that.
you could touch a potato chip bag or get a contaminant on your hand and touch a surface, and that will reproduce that friction rid skin.
Thank you. Are some latent prints better than others?
Oh, yes.
And can you describe that for the jury?
So there's different qualities.
We're trying to make it a little better.
Yes, sir. So every recording of a latent impression is not a true recording of your friction screen because it depends on what's deposited, how long it's deposited. Are you like me, like in the middle of winter, you'll still sweat. Obviously, look better press behind. And then so there's different qualities and quantity of details present based on several factors.
Okay, is part of your job determining the value of latent prints?
Yeah, so back to the ACV, your analysis stage is the first stage. We'll look and analyze the print. Is there sufficient quantity of those level 2 details, those bifurcations, those ridge endings, those dots, level 3 details, which is called edgeoscopy, which is the outer edges of those ridges aren't also, they're not smooth lines either. They actually have peaks and valleys at a mountain range. So all that we're looking at in the analysis phase.
Okay, so would you say that there are latent prints often located that are not of the quality that can be used for comparison?
Yes.
Okay. Does that happen often?
No, I just like that comment.
What can affect, you've mentioned this a couple of times, but what can affect the value of a latent print?
You're talking about how clear it is, basically, what can affect it is basically not how fresh it is, but if there's any slippage or how hard deposition pressure, was there sliding, what kind of surface. Obviously, this table is a better surface to develop prints on, whereas like your new items, your refrigerators, your stuff in your home, your cars are basically repellent to fingerprints. They're made that you don't want to see those fingerprints everywhere.
Okay. What about liquid?
Yeah, liquid's not very conducive to fingerprints.
Okay. When analyzing latent prints with known impressions, what do you begin looking for at the very initial part of your examination?
So that's when you move from the analysis phase. So once you leave the analysis phase, you determine there's sufficient quantity of details present. Then you determine that print's of value. If not, you say the print's of value, you stop. So then you go into the comparison stage. So take those level 2 details, those bifurcations, those ridgings and dots, and then maybe scars, edgeoscopy. You compare that to a single location in a known print. Then you'll compare all the latent images, all the ridges in the latent image to all the ridges in a known print.
Okay. Is there a computerized system that can assist in potential matches between latent prints and known impressions?
The APHIS machine can give you a list of candidates compared to correct.
Okay. Is there any technology on a computer that you use when you're analyzing latent prints compared to known impressions?
No, we don't. We typically use just 2 loops, which is 2 magnifying glasses, or we can use like Adobe Photoshop and put both images up there that way.
So sometimes you use Adobe Photoshop.
That's correct.
Was Adobe Photoshop used in this case?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there, when you're examining prints, do you prefer to have the original print to use for examination?
That's correct.
Can you explain that to the jury?
So every examiner looks at latent print and wants the original image to look at. I mean, there's obviously, I'll be honest and transparent, there's errors out there. The Jeremy Mayfield case where they have to erroneously ID someone because they had a copy of a copy of a copy of an image.
The quality could decrease if as copies go on.
Correct.
Okay. And so, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So ACE-V, we've gone through analysis, comparison, and then evaluation. It's probably fairly obvious, but what's the evaluation?
So the evaluation stage, the examiner can come to 1 of 3 conclusions. We can say he's made an identification, which is basically he or she is stating the latent and the known print came from the same source. Or he can say he's made an exclusion, which means the latent print and the known print did not come from the same source. And lastly, they can say they're inconclusive, which means they can't tell one way or the other whether it did or did not come from the same source.
In your job in the APHIS unit, did you often come up with each of those 3 conclusions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then the last one in ACE-B verification, what is that?
So once you completed your analysis, your comparison evaluation, you'll turn the case over to another independent certified examiner who do their own analysis, comparison, evaluation.
And that was done in this case?
Yes, done all our cases.
Okay, thank you. Now let's move on to this case, the reason why you're here. In 2022, you were the sergeant in the APHIS unit, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What were your responsibilities as a sergeant in that unit?
I was working our majority of our most violent cases. I had the most experience, and then I would also be tasked by the homicide unit to process items of evidence.
Was there, or is there still, a way that cases are distributed to fingerprint examiners in the APHIS unit at the police department?
Yes, ma'am.
What is that?
So they come in, we have red lock boxes, so we kind of keep bias out, so the officers or the investigators or crime scene investigators will put those cases in a red lock box. We'll go every morning, open that red lock box, take them out, sign them, and they'll all sign cases based on what type of crime there is.
Okay. Case, were you asked to analyze certain items to potentially locate latent prints?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall what those items were?
Yes, it was 3 black garbage bags and 2 sets of handcuffs. And I did have a chance to look at the suitcase for suitability for fingerprints.
Okay, were there also 2 vehicles that you retrieved
Yes, ma'am.
latent prints from?
Yes, ma'am. I believe a Toyota, and y'all may look at my notes real quick. And a Toyota and a Chevy.
Okay, and jumping ahead and then we'll come back. After an evaluation, do you issue a report?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and in this case, did you issue a report that specifically related to the Chevrolet, the Toyota, and the garbage bags?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Let's first talk about the Chevy. Do you recall what kind of Chevrolet?
No, ma'am.
Did you actually take the prints off?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Our crime scene unit processed the
Okay. Were you able to locate any prints or did the prints that you received from crime scene, were you able to observe any latent prints that you could use for analysis and comparison?
Yeah, they submitted 4 separate impressions, lifts off the vehicle, and 1 of those lifts had a latent dose of value to compare to a known individual.
Do you recall where on the Chevrolet that latent print with value was?
The front passenger door,
The front passenger door.
the exterior.
Okay. And was a comparison made for that print?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there a positive identification made?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was that person?
It was made by Mr. Jim Cooper.
Why did, so to make a comparison, you have to have known impressions and the latent prints, correct?
Correct.
Because if you don't have one, you have to compare 2 different things. Why did CPD have Jim Cooper's fingerprints?
So all our impressions are run through that APHIS database. It gives a list of candidates compared to. So your fingerprint for numerous reasons, for applying for a job, maybe a teacher, a lawyer. There's numerous reasons why you're fingerprinted and it's collected.
So that latent print went into the APHIS system and it came back as a positive match with Jim Cooper.
Correct.
Do you have any knowledge of Jim Cooper's involvement in this case?
No, ma'am. When we're late print unit, we stay back and try not to figure out who was involved.
Okay. And then let's talk about the Toyota Camry. Were there observable satisfactory prints on the Toyota Camry?
Yeah, there was 3 late impressions submitted, and of those 3, 1 was a value. Or excuse me, 2 were a value.
Was there also a palm print from the Toyota Camry that was of value?
That's right.
Okay, so 2 fingerprints and a palm print were of value.
So each of the lifts, 2 lifts had multiple impressions of value.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're right.
And on that Toyota, were you able to identify where the latent prints on the Toyota were observed?
Yes, ma'am, the front driver's side hood and the the second lift from the front driver's side hood, exterior.
And who did those, were you able to come back with identification on those prints?
Yes, ma'am,
Who were those prints?
investigator Crawford's.
Okay. Is it common in criminal investigations to locate investigators' fingerprints on an item of evidence?
Yes, officers' first job is right for preservation of life, so they're trying to save someone or they're trying to get someone in custody. It may be an officer safety issue, they don't have time right away to get gloves on, so it happens quite frequently.
Okay. And now I'd like to specifically focus on the garbage bags. I'm going to show you, Lieutenant, what's already been identified or placed into evidence as Exhibit 185. Do you recognize this photo?
Yes, ma'am.
What's depicted in the photo?
This is our crime scene processing bay with the bags hanging out to dry.
And in fact, is that you in that photo?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you told where the bags were collected from?
That's correct.
Where, to your knowledge, where were those bags collected from?
They had held Jasmine Pace's body.
Okay. And I want to clarify something. Investigator Schubert's testified already, and it became confusing to me. The order in which the bags were numbered or identified, the three garbage bags have already been entered into evidence as 182, 183, and 184. However, the labeling, first of all, do you know who did the labeling in this case?
I believe she did.
Okay. One of them says that it's number 1, front most exterior. So do you know which bag that would have been around Jasmine's body?
From the documentation I received, number 1 was the most exterior bag, number 2 was the middle, and the bag she labeled 3 was the closest to the body.
Okay. From the outside in 1, 2, 3.
Correct.
And so this one says number 2 middle, and then this one says number 3 back. It's slightly confusing. I'm assuming it's number 3, but do you know why I would say number 3 back?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Okay, it's just labeled confusing.
Yeah, I believe so. That was Investigator Booker who put those back in the bags. I'm not sure how she left them. When she passed the evidence on to me, I wrote down in my notes which bag she told me was in relation to the body, and that's when I did my investigation.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
And were you able to locate latent prints on any of these garbage bags?
Yes, 2 of the bags.
2 of the bags. Do you recall which bags?
Bag number 1, which was the furthest from the body, had 4, and then the bag that was closest, most interior bag, the interior of that bag had 1.
Okay. And were any of those latent prints of value, high enough quality to be examined for comparison purposes?
Only 1 set.
And what set were those?
That was lift A.
Where was lift A on the bags?
The exterior of the 3rd bag.
Okay. And can you describe at this point in any detail the quality of those latent prints that you just described as lift A on the 3rd bag?
So the quality of these images, the latents in that case, I would consider a medium low to medium high quality. It did have some slippage or distortion at the very end, but the core of the impression was really clear. So I would, based on me looking at the prints, I'd say medium low to medium high quality.
Lieutenant, I'm going to hand you 4 4 photos, ask you to look at them, tell me if you recognize them.
Do you recognize those photos?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
What are those photos of?
These are photographs of the image of the latents that are of value.
From
Comparison
Garbage bag number 3,
from garbage bag number 3, correct.
that you were able to compare to known impressions.
That's correct.
Your Honor, I'd ask that these be collected exhibit 213.
Four pics.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, they're extra. They also aren't gonna
Using
tell
exhibit 213 behind you.
whether it's
Can you
premeditated.
describe for the jury, and you're welcome to use the laser pointer if you like, can you describe for the jury what we're looking at in this photo with a DF number 1011A on it?
So DF1011 is my initials and my badge number, and this is image A, so we document sequentially, so if there's more images, we'll go B, C, D, and so forth. We've had scale tape in because when you take a photograph, you want a true one-to-one image of the latent, you're going to compare it. And then down here, you see the 2 fingerprint impressions that were laid down simultaneously, which means at the same time. This has been super glue tuned, so your ridges you're seeing up here on the screen, these white, that's the actual friction ridge skin. And the black is actually the furrow, which was in between the fingerprints.
I'm sorry, was there more you wanted to
Well,
identify?
you also see some voids, and we'll explain what those voids are. That's the substrate that it's on, the bag creates voids. And there's also pockets, it's like if you have anything plastic that's crumpled up, it'll create voids in the bag.
That's what the black marks are that have no white in them.
Correct.
Okay. Second page, actually, let me go to the I'm sorry, this is the second and third page. Can you describe what we're seeing here?
So these are my markings where I've determined the prints are of value. We'll mark the upper portion of it, and we'll put our complaint number and which number we put on it. So these are marked with our complaint number, and they're inches 6 and 7. And then also in this image, it has been reversed. So previously the slide, can you go back one slide?
Yes, sir.
These ridges are white. Well, most examiners, we want to see black ridges, which are your brain's used to seeing. So we're going to be Photoshopped in this flip, invert the colors. All we did was invert the white image to the black images. If you go to the next slide, the ridges are not black.
Okay. And what's the significance of the numbers that have -06 and -07 at the end? The -07 is a little harder to see, it's right under the ruler.
0607, so we previously on the Chevy and Toyota had the images or latents of 101, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5. So when I got the bag, this would be limited images, the latent images 06 and 07.
Were 06 and 07 what were used to make a positive identification?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm also going to show you, I'm going to go to a fourth slide here. This was the fourth photo in exhibit number 213. Can you, using this photo and this slide, can you explain any further about that photo?
It's the same image I showed you before without the markings. So it's just the ridges have been inverted from the Steiner acrylite to black. So the ridges are black. And with this, I have no markings on them yet. I haven't marked it yet. This is what as we photograph that day, this is what the image looked like.
I understand.
I'm gonna hand you what has already been admitted into evidence, 199. There's 2 documents with each of those exhibits. Can you look at those?
Do you recognize those documents?
Yes, it's known impressions.
Okay, and I've got it on the screen here. This is exhibit 198. There's 2 pages. These are the 2 pages. Are you familiar with Investigator Martis?
Yes, ma'am.
Does he often, did he, when he was at the Chattanooga Police Department before he retired, take known impressions from individuals?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you recognize these as the known impression print cards that were taken from Jason Chen?
Yes, I was present that day.
You were present when Mr. Chen was fingerprinted?
Investigator Martin is correct.
Yes, okay. And you'd agree that these are the 4 cards collected from Mr. Chen on that day at the police department?
Yes, ma'am.
Were these print cards, were these known impressions what you used for comparison?
That's correct.
Okay. So explain that to the jury. When we now, they now see the known impressions in the same set of slides as they see the latent. So explain that comparison process.
So then we would go back to our office, we would put the latent impression on the screen and the known impression. We take those those level 2, level 3 details I was telling you about, the bifurcations, ringing dots. I would look for that in first in the latent impression. Then I would look for that in a similar location in the known impression. So then you would compare all the ridge events, all those ridges you saw on the screen previously on that latent image, compare it to all the ridges in the known impression.
How lengthy of a process is this?
It takes a long time to base on how quality and quantity the details are.
Okay. And based on your examination, you testified that there's only 3 options, that there's a positive identification, that you can exclude the known impression from being the same individual as the latent or inconclusive, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay. And in this case, when we talked about -06 and -07 on one of the latent print photos, were you able to make a positive identification?
That's correct.
All right. I'm going to show you what's already been admitted as Exhibit 212, collective. Would you agree that this is a different print card than the prints collected by Investigator Martis
Yes, this is the live scan recording of the scan.
from the Hamilton County Jail?
Yes,
Did you use, for your either investigative purposes or for your testimony today, did you use the Hamilton County Jail prints?
I did use it to create a chart.
Would that be a chart to help the jury understand identification?
That's correct. For that,
Okay. And is this something that you often do?
for every case.
Okay, thank you. Do you recognize those documents?
That's correct.
What are those?
This is the chart that I created for court purposes.
And did you create 2 charts?
That's correct.
Explain what those 2 charts are and why you created 2 of them.
So one chart has the latent impression 06 and 07 marked up with those minutiae, those ridge events. And the second chart has the prints bearing Jason Chen's prints with corresponding ridge events.
And again, why'd you do that with 2 separate prints?
So you can see for yourself how they matched up
In 2 separate sets of prints?
in 2 separate sets of prints, yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask this to be admitted as, I believe, 214. Display for the jury. The second page of Exhibit 214. So, start for the jury you're looking at.
So this is a live scan image of those 10 print cards you saw, the ones that the Hamilton County Sheriff also took. So this is the left ring and left middle finger from that 10 print card on the screen of Jason Chen's.
Okay. And I apologize, that is just a demonstrative exhibit. This photo is the first page of Exhibit 214. Well, it doesn't have a.
I
PowerPoint
seriously
has
don't
gotten
see-
rid of your,
No, he did it.
1 second, Judge. Might have to do this a little bit different because of how PowerPoint presentation is working. Lieutenant Franklin.
Just ma'am.
You need the document canned.
I might have to, we'll see if this works here. Your Honor, I'll have to use the document camera. I apologize, Lieutenant Franklin. Some of it didn't show up in PowerPoint.
No problem.
All right, so here's that slide with the numbers that are going to be helpful for the jury. Can you describe for the jury in this 214 exhibit what we're seeing?
So once again, you have the two late impressions. You have late in 06, late in 07. Then you have the corresponding ridge features that are marked as minutiae, once again, bifurcations, ridges, dots, with red arrows going to those associated numbers. So in this image here, you have 20 ridge events that are marked.
And are those 20 ridge events what you were able to look at and then match to a certain person's fingerprints?
That's correct.
And is that certain person Jason Chen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is this a common practice, a common demonstrative exhibit in your examinations?
Yes, when I testify in court, I always prepare a chart for the jury.
In every case, are there 20 ridge points? Is that the right term?
It depends on the late impression.
Can there be less than that?
Oh, yes.
Can there be less than 20 with a positive identification?
Yes, if the scientific working group Richard's analysis has a sophisticated chart that basically gives you a guideline if your quality of your lateness is better or less, how many ridge events you need to affect an identification.
How many ridge events do you need to affect a valid identification?
1983, the IEI, which is looking at everybody, determined there's no scientific proof or a set number of ridge events to affect an ID. Depends on each examiner's training, experience, and knowledge. With that said, certain labs or agencies will have a threshold. We do not have a threshold. There are agencies out there that may have a threshold of 10 or 12 and so forth.
What do you feel comfortable with?
But each case is specific.
Okay, in this case, you feel comfortable with 20 ridge events.
I've never seen anybody have 20 ridge events in common that's not been the person we identified with. But no one's had 20 ridge events that match up.
Thank you. And then the other page to exhibit 214. Tell the jury what we're seeing here.
So these are the known images of Jason Chen's left ring and left middle finger, and that's the corresponding ridge events that match the previous slide of the late impression. So you have, once again, you have 20 ridge events. And that's not all 20 that match, but this is 20 that mark on the chart.
Understood. Let's go back to the report that you prepare that memorializes your findings. Is that a copy of your report?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you prepare a report such as that in all your cases?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I'd ask that this be exhibit 215. I'm going to show it to the jury, Lieutenant. Hopefully we can go back to PowerPoint. Your Honor, DVD. Okay, is this part of your report?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I didn't want to get it too small, so I separated it into two slides. So this is slightly complicated because everybody else is not used to these type of reports. So let's go through this. When it says submissions, what are we talking about with submissions?
Anything that was submitted on the case for us to look at, either latent print or known impressions from individuals.
Okay, and you had testified that the Chevrolet, the Toyota, and the garbage bags were presented to you in this case.
That's correct.
And then the other items, real briefly, because you mentioned the other items that you also examined for prints. Were you able to make any positive identification on any of those items?
No, neither item had any impressions or latents to compare or even look at.
Okay, thank you. And then the known impressions that you have, were you able to add that to your report after positive identification was made?
That's correct.
Okay, and on the photo of the latent prints on garbage bags, you would agree it says DF1011A. A through E here,
Yes, ma'am.
but those photos showed DF1011A, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So then we go down to analysis. And you can see KMBA, you put Chevy above that. What does this represent here?
That's the lift that was a value that I could compare to another individual that was off lift of KMBA, which Kristen Booker at the time, that was her lift.
And can you explain what the 22-128018-1-01 is?
That's the complaint number from the top, and then that is latent 01.
So we're using that number to identify this particular latent print.
Correct.
Okay, and then the Toyota, we see here, as you described, front driver's side hood, exterior, presented 3 impressions. And we can see that says 02 to 04 after that complaint number.
Correct.
That's because there were 02, 03, 3 prints identified.
3 prints, that's correct.
Okay, and then MJ 74585, document is being recovered off the front driver's side hood. Again, now this is 05.
Correct.
A 4th, and this was also Investigator Crawford's.
Yes, it was.
02 to 05 were Investigator Crawford's.
02 to 05 for investigator problems.
Okay, now we're gonna go to the next page. When you start at the top here, now you get to garbage bags.
Correct.
And you can see the DF1011A, which is reflective of the bag and the identification on the garbage bag.
Correct.
Okay. Document is being recovered off garbage bags. Exterior presented 2 impressions. Those are the impressions you've testified to. Is that correct?
Correct, ma'am.
Okay, and then your conclusion section at the end here is where you make your identifications and you report them in your official APHIS section examination report.
That's correct.
So what you had previously testified to was the fingerprint on the passenger side door of the Toyota was Jim Cooper's.
Correct.
The fingerprints found, the only examinable fingerprints found on the Toyota were from Investigator Crawford.
Correct.
And then the 2 prints of quality to examine from that garbage bag around the body of Jasmine Pace were made by who?
Made by Jason Chen. The prints of value were made by Jason Chen.
The prints that were not of value that you received or that you were able to extract from the other bags, they
can be compared.
Okay. I believe that's it with this witness, Your Honor.
Good morning, Lieutenant Franklin. How are you?
Good morning, ma'am. How you doing?
Good, thank you. Just a couple of things that I wanted to clarify. In this case, you have created a report. Thank you. Sorry, I kind of have the document came in. Show you what's 215 here. This report was issued, I'm going to assume January 3rd, 2023, correct?
It was written then.
Okay. And who did the verification of your report?
Sergeant Snyder's.
And does he have a separate report?
Yes, ma'am.
That's not included within your report. His
No, ma'am.
would be individual, correct?
Correct.
just to draw your attention, I'm gonna show you also what was marked as exhibit 214. You've indicated that the numbers here, actually, before we move to 214, still on 215, you've indicated that there is a complaint number 22128018.
Correct.
Is that correct? And down here under the garbage bag, there's the same number, 22128018, and then it has the -6 and 7. What does that mean?
It means latent impression 06 and 07.
And so that would mean prints that were picked up from the bags.
Correct.
Now, drawing your attention to 214, and I'll start with page 1. There's a number up here that is listed as 22128019-0609. What does that mean?
So 06 was the latent impression 06, 09 is a clerical error, should have been 07 on the screen.
Is the 19 also a clerical error
Yes,
for
ma'am.
the case number?
Yes, ma'am. We did the PowerPoint had the correct information. This was outdated.
Okay, so it should be 22128018-0607.
07, correct, ma'am.
And so that would match the 2 examinations that you performed in 215, which were
Correct.
signified as 6
Yes.
and 7.
Yes, ma'am.
Where were those latent prints obtained?
On the bag or
Yes, on the back.
on the exterior most, the third bag, most exterior bag, on the exterior, not the interior, but the exterior of that bag.
So the prints were from the outside of the most exterior bag.
Correct, ma'am.
Now, you mentioned earlier that the testing that you did in 214 was used with prints from the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. Or did I misunderstand that?
That was used to complete the chart.
To complete the chart. And to clarify, do you use the Sheriff's Office prints for every case or make the chart for every case?
Make a chart for every case.
And so this was typical work that you do, or that you did do while you were in the APIS unit.
That's correct, ma'am.
Did you use the Chattanooga Police Department prints or the Sheriff's Office prints for your investigation?
We used, to make the actual ID, we used the prints, the major case prints that investigator Martis submitted.
And you were present for those prints being obtained?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Now, the prints that were used from the Sheriff's Office, were you present for those prints being obtained?
No, ma'am.
While doing your testing on these prints, did you have any instances where there was difficulty for you matching or processing the prints?
No, I mean, when we look at latent prints, we take our time. I believe the day that I got them, I think it was 2 days later before I even started marking or looking in detail around.
Now, is Investigator Sawyers the only person that reviewed your work?
Officially reviewed, yes.
Unofficially? Did you have other people review?
Yes,
Outside of CPD or within CPD?
2 other certified, like, we only have 2 certified legal members to CPD, so we have, if we want a third person, we have to go outside.
Did you use a third person in this case?
Yes,
And who was that?
Monica Batts, Brandon County Sheriff's Office.
And does she do an independent analysis as well, or do you send her your report and ask her to just
Yeah.
confirm it?
No, she does her own independent analysis, comparison, evaluation.
So within CPD, Investigator Sawyers, would he also conduct a truly independent, do you use the same procedure where there's no bias in a red box?
So if you have a single latent fingerprint, which means just one, we would do a complete form blindness test. We wouldn't even allow you to see the notes or anything else. We ID multiple prints. The secondary examiner gets all my case notes, gets everything, because his job is to prove me wrong.
And was Monica Dax, sorry,
That's okay.
was she the only individual that also reviewed your work?
No, I sent it to a companion that works in Omaha, Nebraska.
What was the purpose of sending it to 2 other people outside of your agency?
So when you get a quality latent, they're really high quality, right? There's no concern. When they get a little less quality, we've looked at it over time, to keep bias out. You want other opinions, no other sound scientific process, you want more than one person looking at it, make sure you're not being biased.
Did you have concerns of potential bias in this particular case?
No, ma'am.
Did you have concerns of uncertainty
No, ma'am.
related to the prints?
No, I did a thorough analysis, comparison, and evaluation. I came to one conclusion on these prints were made by Jason Chen.
Now, you mentioned also the handcuff and the suitcase being submitted to you for potential prints. Did you formulate any kind of report based on those pieces of evidence?
No, Investor Booker asked me to look at the suitcase to see if it was suitable, and we agreed that it was not suitable for fingerprints based on the texture of it. The handcuffs I did, and I did create a report for the handcuffs.
No, that's not any of the reports that have been presented today, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
While you've been testifying, we've not seen that report.
They have screwed up in the order of the bags because I just looked back at my notes and Kristen Schubert was the one that numbered the bags, and she numbered them as the way she came to them. She numbered the outside bag 1 because it's the first bag she came to. The second bag was 2, and the third bag was the third bag she came to. That was the innermost bag. And then in opening statements, the state said that Jason Chen's fingerprints were found on the inner trash bag, the one closest to Jasmine's body. And now they're saying that the third trash bag was on the outside, and that was the one that had Jason Chen's fingerprints on it. So there's a mistake.
Report.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Has that report been provided to the state of Tennessee?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Investigator Franklin, in Exhibit 213, behind you here, the signifiers here, David Franklin badge 1011,
Yes, ma'am.
and then the A stood for this was
My
Day.
first slip. So when each investigator processes item of evidence based on that complaint number, you start with A. So any image, any lip you take, that would be your first one, and then you go sequentially. So Z and then double A and so forth.
And is there a report that shows what A is?
Yes, my official report.
So the official report is what can tie those two together.
Yes, ma'am.
And so this is the exterior of the bag that's listed under -06 and 07.
Correct.
Both of the prints come from this one.
Correct.
Did you have any usable prints from bag 2, bag 1,
What is your definition of usable prints?
that you were able to test?
I did develop other prints, but they were not of value to compare to someone else.
Okay.
So you have to be the threshold of being of value. If there's not sufficient quality of details to bridge events, I can't compare to someone. So we stopped the process.
At any point were these bags reprocessed, or did the
They
fingerprints
were.
get worse?
So we use cyanide acrylite first. Actually, we do a sequential processing. So we look at the bag visually, use ultraviolet light sources. Then we go to the next step, which was super glue fuming. We photographed the super glue. And then I did additional tests of basically finding a dye stain, which is a chemical that fluoresces under different wavelengths. And you use barrier filters and goggles to see those. We used that process, but it didn't make them any clearer.
And just to clarify, you at CPD, not you necessarily, but CSU rolls and ink, correct?
Yes.
When you're talking, you used the term earlier, live scan. Is that like a copier where somebody goes in and basically puts their hand down?
It's basically a flyback scanner that's taking images of your friction-rich skin.
And if I have one more. Lieutenant Franklin, that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you read the record? The jury have any questions for Lieutenant Franklin?
I mean, not that I think any of this fingerprint evidence is going to matter. Because, like I said, none of it proves premeditation, but why didn't the state attorney catch that? She was the one that did opening statements. She was the one that said that the fingerprints was found on the bag closest to her body. She should have caught that. I don't know. Those are the kind of things I catch, like in TV shows too, like continuity errors. Let's see what our true crime watching jury asks now. They have got to be. They watch Law and Order or CSI or something or all of the above. They have to. They ask too good of questions. Speaking of reality shows, there was a true crime one. Another one I can't remember the name of. Y'all have to forgive me. Fibromyalgia just Swiss cheesed my brain. But I can't remember if they were retired or if they were just doing it on their own time. It was cold cases, and it was a detective and a CSI, and it was the CSI that
The jury have a few questions for you. I'm going to ask them if you could
they
please confirm
based
what-
Marge
Yes, sir.
Hellenberger's character on
Can you
from
explain the
CSI
process of how latent prints are looked
Vegas.
for? Is it done over a large area, i.e. the entire trash bag or the entire car hood, or a smaller targeted zone based upon a visual inspection of the naked eye?
So examiners would look for the entire area. So if we had a car, for example, we'll process the entire car, from front to back, the interior. They tend to key on areas where they think it's more of a touch. Obviously, the middle top roof of an SUV, more likely to have to be touched, but areas to the door, the front, the back, obviously in this case, we process from the hood of the vehicle. So the garbage bag is a smaller item. I process the entire bag, all three bags, interior and exterior. When you run Sanger Acrylite or super glue filling, any prints or any residue on that bag, it will attach to.
Do you recall if Investigator Crawford ever shared with you the occasion in which his prints were made on the Toyota?
No, he didn't. I ran those prints. We ran all prints before we know any information. I had no idea those were Investigator Crawford's prints. So
You may need to refer to your notes for this one. It's helpful. Can you please confirm the number of the bag fingerprints of value were found on? Is it bag number 1 or bag number 3?
yeah, bag number one I had labeled the most exterior bag was on the exterior of that bag, not the interior. The exterior of that bag is the two prints that were identified as Jason Chen.
And just so the jury's clear on that, make sure there's an outer bag, a middle bag, and an inner bag. There's an exterior and an interior of each bag, correct?
Correct.
Can you just explain that?
So each bag, also you have an outside of the bag, and there's also the interior of the bag. So those prints are on the third bag, which is the farthest from her body, and it was the exterior of that bag, not the inside of that bag.
Fingerprints found on the handcuffs.
No, we have a new process of the recovery system, so use copper and gold to process things. I use a recovery system, and there was nothing of value. The handcuffs were very pitted and weren't very good, were suitable for fingerprints.
Can you redirect based on the jury's question?
Yes, Your Honor.
Lieutenant, you testified that there was an official APHIS report related to the other testing that the jury has not seen
Correct.
of the handcuffs.
Correct.
Are you certain that you gave that to the state of Tennessee?
Yes, ma'am, it was on the CDI submitted.
Do you have that with you today?
Yes, ma'am.
Will you pull it out?
Actually, it's not on the CD. The CD that I submitted to you was the only one. I've got the photos of the bags.
Okay, and so in that report, the handcuffs were tested, the suitcase,
Suitcase was not tested. We did a visual exam of it. It was not tested.
what in the other report was tested?
Only the 2 handcuffs and the 3 garbage bags.
Well, the 3 garbage bags were in the report that we saw today.
Okay.
Is there another report that reflects the testing of the handcuffs?
Yes.
Only the handcuffs?
No, it has the handcuffs and so when you do a processing request, when you get process items of evidence, Crouch County will do a document saying what they processed, how it was submitted, what process was used. So I did that report, I submitted that report, and then the second report is any prints that are of value we looked at, that would be the APHIS report. So the crime scene report and the APHIS report.
1 second, Your Honor.
I want to be clear about something.
So what I'm showing you is the APHIS report that verifies the fingerprints from the bags were Mr. Chen's, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are you saying that there's another report like that?
No, ma'am. This is official APHIS reports. There's 2 separate reports. The crime scene does a report, so when I process I have the evidence for crime scene, I am part of crime scene. So then I would do a processing request saying every technique I use, how I process it, what time it was processed, what sequential processing I do. So I'd write that report. Since there was no prints of value, there was nothing on the handcuffs, would not go in the APHIS report because there was no prints developed.
Do you now understand where the confusion lies
Yes, ma'am.
in that exchange?
Yes, ma'am.
There is no official APHIS report for anything else
Correct.
because there is no identification.
There was no prints developed on the handcuffs.
Nothing further, Judge.
No further questions, right?
Any questions from the jury based on that exchange? All right, thank you, Lieutenant. You may sit down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We got started a little late today, so we're trying to go until 12:30, or 1 of your lunch should be here sometime that time.
Hopefully we can get through one more witness in that time period, Judge. The state would call Sergeant William Salyers to the stand. Hello, Sergeant Salyers.
Hello,
Please state your name for the court's record.
Sergeant William Salyers,
All right. And Sergeant, where are you currently employed?
Chattanooga Police Department.
And what unit do you currently serve?
I am in the APIS unit, which is our latent fingerprint.
Let's go back through your history at the police department. When did you begin your service at the police department?
In 2006,
In what capacity?
I was a patrol officer,
For how long were you a patrol officer at the Chattanooga Police Department?
approximately 3 or 4 years.
Okay. And then at some point, did you move to another unit?
Yes, in 2010, I moved to the crime scene unit.
The jury's heard from a couple crime scene investigators, but can you describe your responsibilities when you were a crime scene investigator?
Well, I would respond to scenes and I would document those scenes with notes, photograph, video, collect any type of evidence and report all that stuff to the case file when appropriate, testify in court.
Okay. And at some point from the crime scene unit, you moved to APIS, is that correct?
That's correct. January 2015, I moved to the APIS unit.
And when you began in the APIS unit in 2015, what was your role?
I started on entry level to examine fingerprints and report all those case findings and some case file, but mostly training as soon as I got up there because I didn't have any kind of training in fingerprints. So I trained under a certified latent print examiner for over 2 years. And since then I've attended over 500 hours in specialized training. And I've attended the IAI conference as well as the IDEMIA conference every year since then.
Is it common practice that when an individual moves to the APIS unit at the Chattanooga Police Department, they have got to be trained for a certain period of time?
Yes, we typically train for 2 years. And the IAI, the certification board, says that you've got to train for at least 2 years if you have a college degree before you're even eligible to take their certification test. So we kind of hold to that model as well.
And sir, do you have a college degree?
I do,
And what did you get your degree?
business management.
All right. Who did you train under at the Chattanooga Police Department?
I trained under Lieutenant David Franklin.
And you testified that you have been certified. Are you required to be a certified latent print examiner at the Chattanooga Police Department?
It's not a requirement, no.
What did you have to do to become a certified latent print examiner?
So I had to train, like I said, for over 2 years under a certified latent print examiner. And I had to have at least 176 hours of specialized training before I was eligible to take the test. And I have a 4-year degree, so I could take it after 2 years. Then you have to pass a written as far as comparison certification test to be certified.
Were you certified by IAI?
Yes, I am.
And was that in 2021?
That is correct.
So when would your recertification be coming up?
2026.
Now you are in what position in the APIS unit?
Currently, I am the sergeant over the APIS unit as well as our digital forensics unit and photo lab.
As the sergeant at this point in the APIS unit, do you now actually train other individuals?
Yes, I have 2 other individuals that are employed under me, and I trained them as well.
Similar to the way that Lieutenant Franklin trained you?
That is correct.
Okay. You mentioned 500 plus hours of training. Are most, or if not all of those hours in latent print examination, APHIS related?
Yeah, that's correct. All of those hours are pertaining to APHIS and fingerprint related courses.
Are some of them trainings that happened over a period of days?
Yeah, sometimes you would have a week-long 40-hour class, 3-day classes, sometimes just a few hours, but there was just a wide variety, but there was quite a few classes that were 40-hour classes.
Does IAI have an annual conference?
They do.
Are you required to attend it?
Not required, no.
Do you attend them?
Yes.
Are they, how long are those conferences?
They are a week-long conference.
Did you attend the 101st IAI conference?
Yes.
What about the 102nd?
Yes.
What about the 103rd,
Yes.
104th, 5th, 6th, 7th?
Yes.
Okay. Well, 108th. Looks like the last one in 2024 was 108th.
That's correct.
Okay. But outside of that, hundreds of hours of training and fingerprint examination.
Correct, yes. Our fingerprint vendor, IDEMIA, whoever, Lincoln Workstations through, they do an annual conference as well, and we attend that conference too.
Have you testified in court before as an expert?
Yes, I have.
Approximately how many times?
3 or 4 times, and from juvenile court, sessions court, criminal court.
Your Honor, at this time I would tender Sergeant Salyers as an expert in fingerprint examination and APHIS.
Wouldn't you recognize an expert in APHIS, latent print examination?
No objection. Thank you, Judge. All right, Sergeant Salyers, as you know, should probably just pass in the hallway. Lieutenant Franklin's already testified in this case.
That's correct.
Okay, so when you were you working in 2022 under Lieutenant Franklin?
Yes, I was.
And did he ask you to review his findings in the case of State versus Jason Chen?
Yes, he did.
At that time, were you often asked to review his conclusions in a fingerprint examination where a positive identification is made?
That is correct.
Is part of that role the V at the end of ACE-V?
Correct. That is the verification portion of the ACE-V methodology.
And is this always done at the Chattanooga Police Department in terms of identification?
And that's correct. We always verify every identification that we get.
What is the job of the verifier?
Well, as the verifier, you're trying to disprove what the initial examiner come up with. You're reviewing all the evidence and doing your own independent analysis, comparison, and evaluation to ensure that the best possible answer is achieved and reported out.
Do you review all of the work that that examiner has done?
Yes, all of the latents that the initial examiner have are all turned over to a secondary examiner to do their own examination.
Okay. And did you do that in this case?
Yes, I did.
Did you issue a secondary examination report?
Yes, I did.
Sergeant, is that the report that you issued in this case after verification?
Yeah, that is correct.
Your Honor, I'd ask that you mention the evidence as State's Exhibit 216. For your report, Sergeant, did you rely on some of the numbers, identification markings that were also in Lieutenant Franklin's report?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I am displaying for the jury your report. So would the submissions at the top be the same as the submissions on Lieutenant Franklin's report,
Yes, that is correct.
which is in evidence as Exhibit 215? Conclusions that you have on here, are your conclusions the same as the conclusions of Lieutenant Franklin
That is correct.
on all of the latent prints that had the quality able to be examined for identification.
That's correct.
And when you reviewed Lieutenant Franklin's work, did you know what ridge events he had identified?
Not on all of them, no.
So you actually do a review on your own without even looking at all of the ridge events that he identified.
Correct, yes.
Do you recall how many ridge events you were able to identify?
On you,
I'm sorry.
Fred specifically, or?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We will be talking about 06 and 07 at the bottom.
Okay,
Do you recall how many ridge events you were able to identify in 06 and 07?
approximately 06, approximately 15 or 16 ridge events on its own, and then around 9 or 10 on 07.
Were you able to say with confidence that those prints, one being the left ring finger and the other the left middle finger, are that of Jason Chen?
That is correct.
Nothing further, Judge.
Do you have any questions for Sergeant Saunders? Thank you, Sergeant. You may sit down.
I was gonna say, they better not.
Sheriff Clark, next witness, when he's ready.
You're right. He's on his way out.
Okay.
But everybody in Recovery Addicts chat is doing the lunch thing. Judge, when is it time for lunch? I guess if I were them, I'd appreciate the judge efforts to get it done faster. I'm not appreciating it.
tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
Mr. Hamilton, can you say your full name for the record?
Yes, Mark L. Hamilton.
And did I tell you you'd probably be testifying after lunch?
You did, yes, ma'am.
And did you anticipate putting a suit on before you testified?
No, ma'am.
Did you? Did I just call you a second ago and tell you to get up here in 1 minute?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I apologize for that. Welcome. Can you tell the jury what you do for a living, where you currently work?
I work for General Code 1. I'm an investigator here, doing mostly technical investigating.
Okay, I want to go back through your work history, okay? And I want to start from the beginning.
Okay.
So in 1986, if you would consider that the beginning, I'm not sure. In 1986 to 2009, what were you doing?
I was in the U.S. Air Force and then later in the U.S. International Guard teams.
What did you do in the United States Air Force and Guard?
We did communications engineering, ground radio communications, and then later I was running engineering installations all over the world.
Okay, will you remember throughout your testimony that if they're anything like me, we don't speak your language?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's make sure we break some things down. I've already told you my IQ in this field is low, so let's go slow, okay? Okay, what are ground radio communications that you were doing as a specialist in the United States Air Force?
So it was a mixture, basically anything that doesn't leave the earth. So we didn't work on aircraft. We worked on all the launch sites, air traffic control systems, air traffic towers, mobile, even the fire engines. A lot of it was stuff like post-nuclear attack, stuff that works after the nuclear bombs go off and all the radios are gone. This stuff still works. So it was a SAC, strategic air command.
In a technical way, what are radio communications?
They're basically just the transmission of electrons in waveform, and frequencies can be way varying. So it's all the way from super low to up in the microwaves like the shortwave and above time. But they're just waves of energy.
What training did you have to have in radio communications before you were in this capacity with the Air Force and the National Guard?
Well, the military side, we spent the better part of a year just on the technical subjects. There's no history or English, but it's electrical engineering minus the non-fun stuff.
And what is electronic section of 241 first 241's engineering squadron?
So we had two sides of the house. One was installations, which are the guys that are putting up towers, telephone poles, digging ditches, and putting fiber optics. And then I was over the side, which is electronics, which is all the radio communications careers.
Okay. And then later, did you move to a position with the city of Chattanooga?
I did. It was in parallel with when I went in the Guard when I came off active duty. I was a radio engineer at the city of Chattanooga.
So was that from 1989 to 2002
Yes, ma'am.
for approximately 13 years?
Correct.
And working with the city of Chattanooga as a radio engineer, what were your job responsibilities?
We took care of all the communications for multiple cities, actually. So fire, police, ambulance, public works. So mountaintop repeater sites, handheld radios we repaired, mobile radios, built this 911 center we currently have. I was involved in the new build of that. So all the dispatch consoles, had a lot of microwave networks and a lot of mountaintop repeater sites. that we took care of.
What in the world are microwave networks?
But they're just short, micro meaning small, so they're real high frequency, like our microwave oven that's a microwave. And we take that same signal that's cooking your food, put it in a dish, put information on it, and send it across the valley.
So when you say microwave, you don't always mean an actual microwave, but it is a microwave.
Yes, it's short, so high frequency.
Okay. And then in 2002, after leaving the city of Chattanooga, did you join the Chattanooga Police Department?
Well, I'm still a city employee, but I'm lateraled over because technology in the forensics world especially, was really starting to go with the cell phones. And the police department kept borrowing me from the communications shop, and so they just finally just moved me out.
I see. So you're saying in 2022, in 2002, with a new technology being created, the Chattanooga Police Department was using you so much, the city of Chattanooga just said, hey, go over there. Okay,
So my title changed. I still work for the same entity, but my title changed.
sure, I understand. What was your title at the Chattanooga Police Department?
I had 2 or 3 of them, but at one point it was covert surveillance, and it ended up being forensic technician.
Forensic technician?
Yes, ma'am.
And what, as a forensic department?
Cell phone forensics, video forensics, audio forensics, about any kind of technical device. Cell records analysis from the providers.
Do those type of forensics involve inspecting and interpreting cell phone data?
Yes, ma'am.
What about cell phone records?
Yes, ma'am.
What about location data from cell phones and other items?
Yes.
Who were you primarily doing those things for at the police department?
As in which division?
At whose request would you do them?
Oh,
Who would
well-
give you a cell phone?
Generally, most of that work came out of homicide, but I worked for the whole department, plus I assisted 6 or 7 outlying agencies. But yeah, most of my heavy workload came out of homicide.
And what was your involvement in audio and video?
So a lot of times they would call me out to a crime scene. In the early days, it was VHS tapes that were called time lapse. It was awful. Later, as digital came along, they would come into the crime scene a lot of times to collect. Crime scene would collect the cell phone off of whomever and sign it over to me on scene. At the same time, I would go in. If it was a business and had cameras, I would go in there and retrieve video.
And then in 2019, did you join the Hamilton County District Attorney's Office?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that before I was at the District Attorney's Office?
It was.
And before we get any further into your experience and qualifications, I'm going to address an elephant in a room, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
You work for the District Attorney, is that correct?
I do.
That is me, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
When you testify later today, would you ever testify to facts or evidence just to help the District Attorney's Office?
Absolutely not.
In fact, do you often have to give prosecutors bad news when it comes to criminal cases?
I do. I just give the truth.
Okay. Just wanted to cover that.
Yes, ma'am.
So going back to your qualifications, can you explain some of the training? What's in front of me is 2.5 pages long, so I don't know how you're going to summarize it. But can you please try to summarize your training for the jury?
Of course, I had my military training, and then when I was at the city, I did a lot of schools that were provided mostly by Motorola in communications equipment. So I traveled a lot to go to schools. Then when I moved to the police department, I took dozens and dozens and dozens of classes, especially as this technology was growing. Everything from how to interpret cell phone records, certifications in cell phone forensics, so you can understand inner workings of phones. I even took, even though I did it so much, I was probably better than the instructors. But I took a repair course on cell phones, so that I would often, people would break their phone, and I would rebuild it and extract the data.
Did the Chattanooga Police, I'm sorry.
I just say I'm certified in all kinds of different careers.
Okay, we will get there. What, did the Chattanooga Police Department, did they ask you to go to all of those trainings, or was that voluntary? How did that work?
No, ma'am, I was kind of the one off, it was all new, so I just sort of mostly drove that from the bottom up. And we had access to narcotics funds, which is
Which is what, I'm sorry?
it's useful because you can use it for training
I got
and equipment, so I spent a lot of dope rich money.
Okay. What is NATIA?
National Association of Technical Investigators.
And is this association recognized nationwide?
Yes, ma'am.
Do they host trainings?
They do, it was an annual training, in a different city every year.
Approximately how many of those trainings have you attended
I can't recall, it was a number of them.
beginning in the 2000s?
Yes, ma'am.
Did those trainings include training on digital forensics?
They did, they would have a list of classes and you could pick, you had a whole week of it, you just pick the ones that you wanted. You just go to that class for the day or two or however long it lasted.
Okay. And have you been, what is the USAF? Is that the United States Air Force?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you been certified by the Air Force as a fiber optic network engineering and installation expert? Have you been certified in local area network engineering and installation by the United States Air Force?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you, off the top of your head, know of other certifications you've received?
Yes, there's a bunch of them. Probably the biggest thing is I was eventually qualified. You have qualification levels, like 1, 2, 3. I was qualified as a 9-level in the Air Force, meaning I could supervisor work in any career field that was technology. So I got to the top of that list.
What
I'm
is
actually still
that done?
have to talk to my wife.
What does Motorola factory certified mean?
So we have very specific, very expensive, like the repeaters on those, and even the handheld radios are $6,000-7,000 back in the day. But you would go to Schaumburg, Illinois. The other classes were down right outside of Miami, and you would sit in their classroom, and you would learn that one specific line and how to repair it and how it worked and keep it running.
You're certified in that?
Just multiple mobiles, repeaters, and
Over the years in your training, have you been trained in forensic cellular downloads?
yes, ma'am.
Have you been trained in cellular data locationing?
There's been multiple different courses in that.
What, the words that I just said, what does that mean? Cellular data locations, probably not the words that go together. I'll have you describe that.
Well, the providers, i.e. like T-Mobile, Sprint, AT&T, they potentially had to, under FCC rule, figure out where you were, especially before GPS was made. And so they have different ways of arriving at your estimated position. And that becomes important on criminal cases. It's not important to them so much, except they use it for engineering, find bad towers or dead spots they need to add a tower, but we use it for criminal use.
You were asked to locate people before there were cell phones. Is that right?
Yes. And I've had that help even the FBI find the terrorists phone that they could. And
When was that? In your days in the Air
that was
Force?
when I forgot the date, but it was when our military guys got killed here in Oklahoma.
You helped in that operation in terms of
And
cell
the
phones?
FBI came to me and they couldn't find his missing phone, and I put him within 100 feet of it right next to their office.
And as times have changed from when you didn't have any devices that allowed you to locate individuals, have you received training in cellular device location as it's progressed throughout the years?
Yes, ma'am.
There's something on your resume that says GPS devices in March 2011. Was that a training?
It was.
You've also been a part of the FBI digital imaging and video recovery team.
Yes, ma'am. I was took training from.
Talk analytics.
So that is a product that ingests the records the providers give can be very cryptic and huge. And we had to do it by hand. That product was developed just specifically for law enforcement to be able to take like a T-Mobile provider record and ingest understandable format. It's called cell hawk. And so
Cell
I'm
hawk.
certified in it, yes, ma'am. It's actually involved in this case.
You are certified in cell hawk interpretation.
Yes, ma'am.
What is Cell Bright?
Cell Bright is a product that downloads your cell phone and extracts all the information. And some people probably remember back in the day when you would go to Verizon, you got a new phone and they were flip phones. They had a black box that they would transfer your phone numbers from the old phone to the new one. That's a Cell Bright phone. And somebody along the way went, hey, we're getting that data, we'll just put it on a phone drive and now the police or whoever can use it. So it's a product specifically engineered to extract a lot of information from a cellular or any mobile device.
Are you able to interpret records from Cell Bright?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you done that in many cases before?
Thousands probably.
And have you received awards and decorations from the United States Air Force?
Yes, ma'am.
Many.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever testified as an expert in a criminal case?
I have,
Do you know how many times?
I've never counted them, but it starts in the early 2000s, so it's hundreds.
Have you testified in each criminal court in the Hamilton County Courthouse?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this point, I would tender this witness as an expert in digital forensics and radio frequency engineering.
Would be recognized expert in digital forensic and radio frequency engineering. Thank you. Thank you. The last time.
Would the court like me to continue?
Story lunch. Not here yet, please. We'll go to lunch.
Okay. All right. DVD, you're on. All right, let's start from the beginning, Mr. Hamilton. Can you turn around, look at the screen behind you? I just want to start by, well, before we get to this slide, let's do this. Can you tell the jury what the difference is between a phone, a cell phone, and a SIM card?
Yes, so the phone is the radios. It's basically just a collection of radios. Bluetooth, 4G, 5G. It's the hardware. The SIM card is that little tiny ceramic card. And that is basically the identity of your account it's a phone number is tied to. But it actually does have a little computer in it. It can store a tiny bit of information, just a few contacts and things, but basically it's a secure chip that the radios in the phone communicate with and then talk to the network, and the network validates you and says, oh, that's so-and-so. So it basically is your phone number.
Is there a difference between a forensic download of a cellular device and cell phone records from a provider?
Oh, absolutely, yes, ma'am.
What is the difference between a cell phone download, how we would refer to it, and records such as records from T-Mobile or Verizon?
So the cell phone download is kind of like you would expect. It'll have pictures, locations, calls, text, all different apps, and it's kind of just in chronological order. So it's usually very large now because these phones have a lot of data. So you can get 500 gigabytes off these phones easily. The records the provider gives us are basically just spreadsheets with columns and rows of who called who, what time, what day, what tower you used. So they're a bunch of spreadsheets. Mostly.
Have you been trained in, cellular location data as it relates to towers,
Yes.
cell towers?
I have.
Do our phones track us?
They do in two different ways. There's a GPS in there that Google and Apple and everybody are tracking to see where you go and what you do. The cellular company's not tracking that. They're tracking which towers you're using and which antennas you're on for engineering purposes.
Okay, so if you are trying to learn, if I travel from here to home and you were to receive my cell phone records, it wouldn't necessarily show my path home, but would it show the towers that I am near?
It would show the towers and antennas that your device communicated with, yes.
And when you say device communicated with, what does that mean?
It's not all the time, so you may start downtown and maybe hit one in the middle and then one or two at the end, but you might miss some.
What causes our phone to communicate with towers?
There's a myriad of reasons. Now with these smartphones, it's your stock market updating and plus your device announces itself all the time so that they can't light up every tower in the country looking for you when you get a phone call. That would just wreck the network. So your phone occasionally just comes out and says, here I am. So they know when you get a call, go to that tower first and try it and see if they can get you because that's where it will last through your phone. But yeah, they're talking, if they're on and working, they're talking on the network quite a bit.
Okay, so you're saying that any activity that occurs on our phone is as little as a notification from a news outlet would connect in some way, that might not be the right word, you can tell the jury, connect in some way to a cell phone tower.
Yes, it can and will, but it's not continuous, so it's not like you're tracking somebody minute per month. Every 10 seconds, it might be some gaps in there, a few minutes.
And do our phones record that activity?
The phones necessarily don't. Good provider and their computers store all that.
Okay, so I just misdescribed to keep those records,
Yes.
such as T-Mobile.
Yeah.
Okay, and approximately how many cellular towers are there located in Hamilton County?
I could not answer that. It's thousands and thousands of them, and each one has multiple technologies. So you might see antennas, so you can literally have 50 different radios running off of one tower.
Okay,
It's a lot. It's overwhelming. When I get the database with all the towers in it, the records are in the hundreds of thousands.
all right, so now I think we're at this slide behind you. Can you tell the jury what we're looking at there?
Yeah, let's just give everybody an idea of generally the towers are in.
Make sure, Mr. Hamilton, that you speak as loud as possible for the jury,
Yes,
just for
ma'am.
the jury.
So actually, I think they can. So these towers generally are three-sided, and so when we get the records back, you'll get a basically a 1, 2, or a 3. So it'll be tower number 99, and it'll tell you used like antenna number 3, which will be these guys here. But they generally break them into 3 spots. A lot of them, they do 120 degrees, so they cover a 360. But if you have a shopping mall or a high density area, they put the towers where they make money, so they might point all 3 antennas in one direction to put them in, say, a big shopping area. And so it's not, or as we have here with these mountains, they don't want them covering the valley from the top, so the ones at the top will actually all face onto the mountain. Doesn't mean you can't talk to it from behind it, but it's just the main lows. But this just gives you an idea of there's 3 sides to them, and so these different size antennas are probably all the same provider, but that's going to be your 3G, your 4G, or nowadays it's 5G. Yeah, they're generally around, have 3 sides.
Okay? In this slide, what is the jury seeing?
So this is kind of, give you an idea of the way the signals come off that tower. They overlap, even though they're 3 distinct sides, that's not a perfect laser unit, it kind of stands out. So that just gives you an idea they're designed to cover everything around them.
And then what is different, what's depicted in this photo different than the first photo?
So you'll see on some of these maps, the LTE antennas, which are gonna be your data on the 4G, they don't put 3 sides on, they just put a stick up, and that guide us radiates in a circle. So it's like all 3 sides together at once. So it just sits there, and the signal's equal all the way around it, so we can't tell what side of the tower they're on when it's on the data. You'll see a circle instead of a triangle. And that's, tells us what tower, which antenna, but we don't know if it's north, south, east, west.
Let's start talking about this case in particular, the case of
Yes, ma'am.
State of Tennessee versus Jason Chen. Were you asked to work on different forensic downloads, digital forensics, audio, video, cell phones? Were you asked to work on this in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you do that, do you also consider other, what we call discovery, which is evidence in a case?
Yes, ma'am.
How many hours of work would you say you've put into this case when it comes to what you are an expert in?
I would guess 60 to 70
60 to 70?
hours.
Okay. And when you did you examine both T-Mobile records in this case
Yes, ma'am.
and Verizon records?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when you do that, in the records themselves, you touched on this, so let's go back to it. In the cellular records themselves, what all are you able to see?
So in the records, there's a lot of information. It has the name of the owner. Generally, it tells you a lot of specifics about the account and devices. But then you get into call detail records that show who called who texted who, what time and date, potentially what tower it was using in what area of the country at the time. And then we get, there's just multiple spreadsheets. Another one that we get estimates of where you were. And that's, you'll see that here. Some of them we just have a tower. Some of them we have a tower and an arc, which I'll explain later, but you'll have a line and you should be somewhere on that line. And then some of them you'll see a circle, and the circles are in different diameters by their quality. So when they get a real good signal, they say it's pretty accurate, or not, it'd be a big circle. But all of that's contained in spreadsheets. So it's just columns and numbers and letters.
Okay, were you aware, when we're talking about the T-Mobile records in this case, are you aware that the records that you have in your possession are only from a shortened period of time?
Yes.
And Investigator Bulkley has already testified that those records are from the week of November 22nd, 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What changes in cell phone records if items are deleted?
So if items are deleted on your phone, I guess you're asking, because you can't delete the stuff that the provider.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so nothing happens. No matter what you do to your phone, it's already there. It's permanent. It goes nowhere. It's in there.
Are there records that you can remove from your phone, or I guess that would change based on what you're doing on what a person is doing on their actual cell phone?
So you're asking on the physical device, can they change it?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
What is what is that? How does that work?
You can delete stuff, or you can just reset the phone to factory new, and it's completely irrecoverable once it's gone. So
If-
that's yours. You can manipulate it a lot.
What if you reset your phone? What does that do to the records themselves?
The only thing it would change is involving this, and they do what's called iCloud backup. So your backup is kind of an image of most of what's in your phone stored at their server. So if you go wiping it, your next image is going to have whatever you have today, but they keep multiple copies. So when if you restore it, you can go pick a date. I don't know how many they keep, but that would change. But as far as what the provider of records, like what towers you use, and they also sometimes, and we got them in this case, they send some of the text message content, and that won't change no matter if you delete it on your phone or not.
If a phone is reset, do the records reflect that?
No, not exactly. At least we didn't get them because you'd have to get them from Apple. And what we see on the provider side is some information showing that there's some changes, but where we actually see an iCloud backup is in the actual device download where the physical phone was put on the cell phone and downloaded.
Okay.
And that does show when and what happened.
Okay. And on this slide, is this accurately describe the records, the cellular provider records that you reviewed in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And are the phone numbers correct that are attached to both the T-Mobile records with Jason Chen and the Verizon records with Jasmine Pace?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's give the jury, are we still good, Your Honor?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. So now I know that this is difficult to see for the jury, and I wish I could zoom in, but I can't on my PowerPoint. So I'm going to have you, and this is just for demonstrative.
It is, yes.
This doesn't contain any information that we're specifically trying to point to today. But can you just describe for the jury sort of what you're seeing here?
So this is just one of the typical spreadsheets we did. It's showing the start and end time. It shows some numbers here that will become important here. The model of phone. It tells us which switch, the market it's in, which is kind of like big counties. They have, like here in Chattanooga, we actually use on Verizon, we use the switches in Atlanta. So where stuff starts telling me which tower and then which antenna you use. So you'll get what's important mostly is what time of day and what antenna and which market it's in, and I have a list of all the towers so that I can match.
So would it be accurate to say that on the left column, we can see dates and times, correct?
Yes.
And then you would also be able to see in the records such as this, what tower, would the left side be activity on the phone?
Yes. This is date and time, and this over here is which towers you're using
Okay.
and antenna.
So for all this activity, which is just simply activity throughout parts of 11/22/22, the cell phone towers are all the same. Can we not see that on this?
Yeah, you can. Yes.
Okay.
This is all the same. So that's pretty indicative of a phone that's not moving or not moving much in that little print of that one antenna.
Okay, and you'd agree under subscriber that we've got Jasmine Pace's phone?
Yes.
Is this the way, is this how you were able to track a phone location based on the cell phone towers?
The other one is a document, which I don't have, it's just like this, but it'll have an estimated latitude and longitude. And I guess now's a good time to explain that, but GPS, like we're used to when you use something to navigate on your phone, is generally accurate now down to about 15 to 30 feet. These towers are rough, so they're not GPS. So when you see a circle, it may be 500 feet, and they're estimating you're in that circle somewhere, but it's not GPS. So you'll see latitude and longitude, but it's not GPS. So it's not very, very accurate. It's roughly accurate. Sometimes it can be off quite a bit. So it's not a thing where I can say you were into this house. I can say you're probably in the neighborhood or on that block.
Understood. So this is an example of the records that you would use to determine the location of a cellular device. Is that
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Okay. And then we have another example here, except these are Mr. Chen's T-Mobile. This is an example of Mr. Chen's T-Mobile records. And again, I apologize, but is there similar, but we've got a little bit more on this. So is there similar information?
It is, and this is one I was talking about where T-Mobile's estimating where this device was. It's not me. So it tells you date, time, who, and basically what happened, calls or a text or whatever. But what's important right here, those are the tower latitude and longitude. But on over, you'll see they'll actually estimate your location at latitude and longitude with a circle of a given radius, and they tell us that. So now we can map and draw a circle on the map of the right diameter, and they're saying it's because they got told they had to, because there wasn't GPS on all the phones, and people would call 911 and say help, and they didn't know where they were. So they came up with this system.
Okay.
It actually measures the speed of light and multiple towers and guesstimates where you are.
Okay, again, we don't speak the same language, but we're doing well here. Okay, were you able to review the T-Mobile records of Mr. Chen and the Verizon records of Ms. Pace to determine their approximate locations the week of November 22nd?
Yes, ma'am.
In doing that, did you identify quite a few cellular towers that at different times their devices were connected? Determining the location of their cell phones, did you also review other records from both Mr. Chen's and Ms. Pace's records that were provided to you by T-Mobile and Verizon?
Yes.
Like data used, messages, calls, etc.?
Yes, there's a whole string of spreadsheets with these returns.
Is it helpful to review other records on the phone to corroborate a location?
It is somewhat, not so much the location, but the dates and times, because these phones, especially where we live, we're right on the timeline. And the phones will jump in and out of central time. The records, a lot of them are stored in what's called Greenwich Mean Time, or ETC, which is in England. And part of the year, we're 5 hours to take the record, find the same call or text in the phone and match them, and know that your calculations are right. We're almost subtracting 5 hours. Some of these call sheets are in the accurate local time, so you have to have a good understanding of how AT&T or T-Mobile or whoever, what they provide you. You got to know how to read it.
In forming your opinions in this case, did you use other evidence to corroborate those opinions or to even make those opinions?
Yes, ma'am. So I used somewhat looked at the phone download, but I mostly used some videos that were available and to corroborate the location.
What about text history?
Yes.
Is the location data, as you are going to describe it and explain it to the jury, is it inconsistent with anything that you located in the records
No.
or in the phone downloads?
No.
And this was just recently, I can't recall the exhibit. This was an exhibit from yesterday, not today. I'm showing you a photo that's already been admitted into evidence. Here we go. Exhibit 208. This is a photo of Ms. Pace's vehicle.
Yes.
You'd agree that this next photo is a photo of Ms. Pace's vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
And then exhibit 171-2, would you agree this is a photo of Mr. Chen's vehicle?
I do.
Was it helpful to know what the vehicles look like in forming your opinions?
Yes, because I was watching videos with nobody. I traditionally do this without any help or asking case info, and so I needed to know what the vehicles look like. So when I watched the videos, I could find it.
Okay. Now let's begin chronologically going through location data that you were able to collect. And let's start with Miss Pace's phone on 11/22/2022. This is exhibit number 1. Have you seen this exhibit before?
Yes, ma'am.
What does this show, to your knowledge?
That-
Efforts to determine the location of Miss Pace's phone on the 22nd. Were you able to find evidence that corroborates this trip?
Yes, it was.
All right, so this is the first time of many that the jury is going to see a map that looks similar to this, okay? So this is when we have to sort of break it down for the jury so that they can understand it.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this a map that reflects Miss Pace's travel from 11:27 to 11:43 p.m. on the 22nd?
It does.
And that would also be the time frame on this My Chevy app, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what are the green circles or semicircles?
So this is that product called CellHawk, and it'll ingest the records and do all this heavy lifting for you. So the circles, remember I was saying the LTEs are omni, meaning they cover all the way around, so we don't know which side of the house. That's what the big circles here. And then when you see this line, it's hard to see with that pie shape. So it covers generally 120 degrees. The coverage is the circle one is not the circle. It can be huge. It can have holes from ridges. Generally, like when you see this triangle, they're using the antenna on that side of the tower facing north. And its coverage is going to be out this way. So if you were traveling down this road right here, you would be hitting these antennas like that. And it's very consistent that the path that's from the GPS in that phone on that record from My Chevy matches the radio signal I'm seeing and the timing. So this is rolling into, have you guys seen the map yet?
You know, sort of, but if you want to go ahead and describe for the jury, well, first of all, let's start here. Are you from the Hamilton County area?
I am
How long have you been here?
since the mid-70s when the Apollo program quit.
Okay. Are you extremely familiar with the geography here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we can see, would you agree that the furthest green, like you said, pie shape and semicircle, whatever, and circle, that is close to, or very, very close? That, yeah, what is that top? What is
So
that?
that's 5977, which is the Pace residence.
So is the map that we're seeing all the way from the Pace residence down to Mr. Chen's apartment?
It is. It's,
Go ahead and describe that where we're at.
so this is Dixon. We call this around here North Chattanooga and Dixon. So this area down here where he's at, North Chattanooga, it's covered up. But right here, 110 Tremont Street's right in there. And you'll see eventually Walmart, 900 Mountain Creek Road. I've marked the pertinent locations. The body location is up here on the river. Down in the yeah, so basically this is the area that we're mostly going to be looking at, this lower half.
Okay, did you identify on there the significant locations for this case, like Walmart and the body location in Mountain Creek Road? Did you insert that?
I did, and there's a Walgreens here. It's kind of missing on this one because we're so zoomed out. But yes, the body, 900 Mountain Creek, Walmart, the drugstore down here, right next to Tremont Street where the apartment is.
Okay, and the jury can see all of the times associated, which there's a lot of them. In fact, when we get to the bottom, they overlap each other. Does CellHawk create those times?
It publishes them. The times are created by the provider. So in this case, the red ones are going to be Mr. Chen's, and the green ones are Mrs. Pace. And the times they come from those spreadsheets. So the only thing I physically did in this case is put those addresses and put a pin on the address, and everything else is automated by cell phone.
Okay, and you just mentioned this, but we need to be clear, because this is gonna continue throughout our time together here. The green is going to represent whose cellular device?
Jasmine Pace.
And the red now and in the future is going to represent whose cellular device?
Jason Chen.
Okay. And did you do that so that we keep them separate?
Yes, it actually chooses the colors for you, but you can alter them. But yes, each phone number is a different color.
General, I've been advised that lunch is here, so you can set up, we can stop, almost cut you off whenever you're ready.
No, Your Honor, when we come back, I'll probably refer back to this slide to explain the next couple, but it's totally fine.
Okay, great. Take a break at this point.
Sure, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the lunch is arrived, we can set up. 5 minutes after 1, we'll take our usual hour, 15 minutes, so we'll resume the jury trial at 2:20.
And, Judge, will you let Mr. Hamilton know not to discuss his testimony?
If you'll have a reference your witness right now, you can discuss your testimony.
Okay, guys, we will be back at 2:20, and I'm going to take a nap because I'm falling asleep. So I will see you guys back at 2:20. Have a good lunch. See you then. Bye.